We want to do a sound effect, right? Can everybody hear us? Whoever's in the farthest from the.
Somebody raised their hand, so I'm guessing. Yes, I'm getting thumbs up.
Well, can someone in the water say something? Testing, testing.
Is that feedback? This is the interpreter, Melissa. Is that feedback that I heard E, or is that the feed?
It's the door.
Okay.
We're good?
There is some commentary that I'm seeing that the camera for the interpreter is pretty awkwardly positioned. And it's like off to the side.
Should we try to move it a little bit more? And he's saying, yeah, it doesn't bother me if they can't see. Don't block me. Yeah, I mean, I'm just in the room, or could people moving?
Do we want to change it or leave it?
Darcy's saying, what's the problem exactly? Is it the lighting? Or is it the angle, or is it blurry? What specifically is the problem with the camera right now?
This is Amber, it's the camera is like off angle to the side is the commentary that I'm seeing right now.
They're preferring it more
Direct,
That's not gonna work
but
today.
that's not gonna work. So.
Well.
I can move all the stuff on the tables. No, you're fine. I'm gonna say you're fine. You know what? It's good. Don't worry about it. Just give it. My 2 cents.
You good? Okay, go ahead and start the meeting. The Board of Sign Language Interpreters Rule Advisory Committee meeting is convening at 10:14 a.m. on March 22nd, 2024. This meeting is being held in person and by Zoom video conference and is being recorded. Recording will be posted to the internet for public viewing. The Health Licensing Office asks that the individuals attending through Zoom keep their phone muted and their cameras off during the entire meeting until you're given an opportunity to comment during the public and interested parties feedback period. They may be on the agenda. I will now call roll. Amanda Smith. Here. Christy Karsten. Here. Laura Harrison. Caitlin. Here. Natalie. Here. Deanna. Nissa. Here. Darcy. Here. Buck. Amber.
Here, is he online? Can we check online?
He's not. Edwin. And Melanie. Here. We'll put it over there. Okay, members, when you wish to speak, please wait and be recognized and then state your name for the record. We'll talk about that. If you're attending the meeting through Zoom, you're asked not to use the chat feature. Public members wishing to speak must first sign on the roster. Sheet available, no one's in the room. For public meetings on Zoom, please email Carrie Edwards at Carrie, CARRIE.Edwards, EWARDS @OHA.Oregon.gov. And provide your first and last name. Everyone is asked to use appropriate language, manners, and protocols when conducting board business. This meeting is now called to order. Okay, so, first order of business is to decide how everybody's going to communicate. So we met, the board met on Wednesday, and when they met, anybody who could sign went up here to the camera. However, Darcy has said, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's however, everybody's comfortable doing it, and she just needs to know, so she knows what to do. But I think everyone should do it the same way, so amongst yourself, decide how that is. There was a suggestion that everybody go to the camera and speak, whether it's signed or verbal, so the people online can see us. I'll let you guys decide if that, we should do that or not. The downside of that is we won't get as much done. But the upside is that people will know to speak. And I don't have an opinion either way. I'll do whatever's something for everybody.
This is Amber speaking. I think that if there's a lengthy comment, that it might be more helpful to have that individual come up and sign. But if we're having natural dialogue, then maybe we can just have that happen over table. But if there's a lengthy comment that somebody would like to make, then they can come up and sign that.
Okay, that works.
Okay,
Okay, so
anybody else want to say anything?
This is Amanda, and I don't know whether to sign or talk. Because I'm not on camera. So I guess I'll speak, but I wonder what we need to function as a committee and make sure that we get the work of the committee done. And for me, oftentimes that is using the language of whoever it is that I'm talking to and or, right, so like signing to Sammy is hard and talking to Darcy is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we have interpreters and I want to be, you know, respectful of that. Yeah, it feels ill-defined. In terms of like lengthy comment versus short comment. What's lengthy and short?
you guys are the experts. You decide.
This is Christy. I also recognize that this is for public viewing also, but I think our task is to get the work done. And based on our last meeting and how much ping-ponging and back and forth, I could see that by going to the front would slow us down and slow us down. So
The other advantage of going to Sammy, going to the front is you have to stop talking. And you gotta move to the front because that was another complaint. So a ton of crosstalk, a ton of one person's talking and someone disrupts them or jumps in and so that others, you know, who are waiting can't get in. And that's, you can do that all kinds of ways. You can appoint one person to designate to like the chair would be, that's what Jack did, is to recognize each person as we went. Or we can all just be mindful of it and try to not do that. Talk over each other and butt in. I think both of those things were commented about.
This, Nessa, what do the interpreters feel that is comfortable? Because they're the ones that have to compensate for us.
This is Amber. I think it's a little bit awkward to ask interpreters questions while they're working, so we can potentially follow up with that at a later time.
So should we go ahead and pick like a chairperson or someone to manage the discussion, the turn taking? Maybe, you know, if we all try to do sign language and see how that process goes, we can do like a check-in after a couple hours and see if anything needs tweaked. And then we could also test out the chair option. We could just kind of go with it and see along the way if anything needs to be changed. This is the interpreter for the public. There's lots of head nodding amongst the members. Mel, this is Mel. Darcy, do you want to be the person chairing this discussion? Darcy says, sure, I can try. Great.
Are you signing for yourselves or is the interpreters talking and signing? I don't know.
Darcy, this is Darcy. I believe that's gonna be everybody's decision.
On the fly.
This Amanda means if on the fly. So if we're signing, should we come up and sit in the chair on the video, like Darcy come up and sit, or are we not using the chair? What do we think? This is Darcy. I don't want to be going up and up to the in front of the room every single time we're calling on somebody.
Okay, so that decision's made.
This is Christy. I feel like, for the sake of time again, keeping focused on using whatever language we feel comfortable with. But I think it's our responsibility, and I was guilty last time, of making sure that we slow down, that one person's talking at a time. We don't cross talk and we don't, over talk. And I feel like maybe we should give each other permission to identify when someone is doing that, so that we can remember to, make sure everyone has access.
So this is Nessa. And I think last week we learned, well, it was a learning experience for everybody. A lot of us didn't have this kind of panel experience background. So it was a lot of overlap, but now I feel like we kind of really learned firsthand about, and the process will probably be going better now. Now crossing my fingers.
Okay. So this is Sammy. I will go ahead and start. I just wanted to give anybody. We had a board meeting on Wednesday. Did everybody watch it? Okay, so I'll give a little overview of what happened. Since the committee decided that we needed more time and we scheduled some more meetings, I brought to the board two options. One option, which I told you guys, which was file a temporary rule, go over top of the HLO rule that is in place now by June 8th. Or go ahead and file proposed rules based on what's in place now. So by June 8th, we have a permanent rule in place, and that gives us all the time in the world, and you guys can meet 25 times if we need to. I mean, we're not up against a wall on timing, because even if we do file a temporary rule, we only have 180 days. So we're back up against the wall about timing, and then trying to file a temporary rule over temporary rule, like a board temporary rule and another board temporary rule. Now, our attorney won't. I've tried. So I think it's the best method is to file a proposed rule on April 1st, and then we'll have public comment from April 1st to 28th. The RAC members can make comments. There'll be a hearing on April 16th. I gave you guys a schedule last time, and I can give you an updated one, but I didn't put them out because I wanted to see if we were going to schedule more meetings. I want to get them on there so you have all the information.
Darcy's saying, I don't clearly understand the two options.
It's hard. Yeah, I know. So. So currently, what's in place now is a temporary health licensing office rule that gives anybody who applies and qualifies a license. And that's a temporary rule. Temporary rule is only good for 180 days or 6 months. So by June 8th, when that expires, the board has to have something in place. Whether it's another a board temporary rule or a permanent rule. And those things are confusing. A temporary rule, you don't have to go through the whole RAC process and have a hearing. It's more immediate. Means that there's some risk to the public or some prejudice to the public that if we don't do rules immediately, something's gonna happen. That's what a temporary rule does. A permanent rule walks us through this whole process. Rules advisory committees, public comment period, hearings. So more time for inclusiveness and comments, so everybody gets their turn and their say. So what I presented to the board was filing a board temporary rule that would get us from June 8th. So over top of the rule we have now to, I think it was December 4th. The board chose to not do that. They chose to go with a permanent rule process. So I'll file proposed rules with Secretary of State on April 1st. And it goes in the Oregon Bulletin, that's their fancy newsletter. And then there's a public comment period. Anybody can write in, email what they think of the rules, they hate them, they like them. You can give me studies, articles, anything that you want. And then on April 16th, there'll be a hearing. I'll have it on Zoom and we'll have you can come into the room and do it. It'll be recorded. And then the board will look at all the comments received in the hearings officer report, consider all of that. Make any changes that they want to the proposed rules, as long as it's within, the parameters of what they proposed. And then permanent rules will be filed. So then you're gonna then we're done. We have a permanent rule in place. It's not a perfect rule by any means. It's not all the rules that need to be done, but it gives us a permanent rule to move forward with at this time. And so we're not up against a wall to hurry up and have, rules that aren't great. And then have to do it again and do it again, keep doing it over and over because we're getting rules that aren't great. But if we have this permanent rule in place by June 8th, we're good. Now we can just keep going with the racks until we get all the stuff worked out. If we need subject matter experts to come in and talk to us, we need legal advice from Heather. She can come in. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen if we're not up against that time. So is that at least better?
We're gonna take a moment and switch interpreters.
Not an easy process.
This is Christy. Still trying to grasp this. So the permanent rule that the advisory board voted to that track to go, that pathway. That means we're taking the rules as they are published now. Or
Pretty much, yes.
with the,
No rat comments in the ones that are being proposed.
so but they would be published and we would adopt them, which means that we are holding people accountable by what's on the paper by June 8th when they apply for a license. They must meet all those things.
That being what you applied for as of January 1st.
Okay, and I guess my concern in regards to that is we already know that we don't like how they are written. We already are suggesting significant changes. And yet we'll hold people accountable to that. And then we will spend time undoing this thing. And how long does that take to undo it? But are the people still accountable throughout that process? So that would be my hesitation.
Not fully sure I understand, but I'm.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I was watching the interview.
sorry, I was watching the interpreter.
Let's see if it does. So the rules that are in place now, the HLO rules, the board made a couple little tweaks, like they took a few things out. They only took one thing out. And so everybody who applied on January 1 as of January 1st would reapply again, pay the fee, and those same requirements would be what you qualify, how you would qualify for a license. It won't change. To undo what you did is you have to go through that proposed ruling, the same process again. Racks, public comment period, hearing, all those things have to happen again. And they can happen over and over and over again, if that's what needs to be.
And so just to restate that we have a pathway to make the changes by going through this process. But in the meantime, people are held to the requirements, even though we already know we don't like some of the requirements, but we want to change them. That's where I'm stuck. Like,
I'm not sure what you mean by held to the requirements. What do
well,
you
in order
mean?
to get the license, you'll have to be what's on the paper.
So the application requirements.
Yes,
You have to do all of X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
Yes.
but we already know that we don't like some of the things that are in there, that we want to change them. The test scores, all
Right.
those things. So it is true that they would be held to what is published on the paper until we make it through the whole process.
Correct.
Okay, Caitlin?
So we are following the HLO rules until this rack is complete.
And well, the RAC will finish their job and then the board will start their process.
So what timeline is this rack currently looking at now?
As long as you need to meet.
Okay.
I mean, I base it off of last week's 7 more meetings.
So if. This is Caitlin, sorry. So theoretically, if we are done with our meetings later in June, how soon would that process go on?
You would have permanent rules in place by January.
Natalie?
Yeah, so this is Natalie. So does that mean that, as I feel like as Chrissy was mentioning, so like by June 8th, if there's permanent rules, then all of the interpreters have to then, get other licenses based on, doing all the testing and everything that they need to do to get those. But they have to be already in compliance by, hopefully by then. So if we make the changes and they go live in January, then that will not really affect, because I mean, they already did everything that was already in the rules. Or are they just gonna follow, cannot resubmit the same application they did back in January, again in June? Does that make sense?
They'll be reapplying the new piece of paper.
Yeah, so they're gonna do the paper, but then do they have to follow everything? Like, do they have to do like the conversational tests and stuff like that to get those? Or are they just gonna apply and say, okay, I do have all these things? Are they gonna follow the same process they did in January, or do they have to now follow these rules that we do not like?
They are not going to be. This is Sammy. They won't be following the rules that you do not like.
Okay.
They'll be following the rules
Yes.
that you do not. They will not be following the rules that you like. The health licensing office rules that are in place today will be what is in place on January 8th. But it'll be board rules. June 8th. Thank you.
Amanda? This is Amanda. Do you mean that for the temporary ruling, it will become permanent as is on June 8th? This temporary ruling that we have here that we've been discussing will become a permanent ruling on June 8th, or will the board then gather all of the information from public comments, from the variety of sources, and then they'll make some adjustments, and then it will go ahead and be released on June 8th? As the permanent.
All of those things will happen, but it will not be based on the things you were discussing last week, this week, next week.
I get that.
Okay.
This is Amanda.
None of that will happen. It'll be based on the HLO rules that are in place today.
Yes, Amanda. Okay, hi, this is Amanda again. So isn't that temporary ruling? Isn't that what we're calling the temporary ruling? Because that's what's in place right now, is that correct? And those will become permanent.
Yes,
Okay. That's-
this is Sammy, yes.
Christie? So if the advisory board has already selected that pathway, is this really a non-conversation because we don't have a choice?
Sammy?
This is Sammy. I wasn't giving you a choice. I was giving you an update.
Okay, Amanda? This is Amanda, so a follow-up question. So what's the point then of us meeting today and then in 2 weeks? What would we be doing if the temporary ruling becomes a permanent ruling with public comments? What's the point? And Amber?
This is Amber speaking. I just wanted to note for the record that Lori Harris has now joined the meeting. Thank you. Harrison, sorry.
Sammy?
This is Sammy. So if you want different rules. So you'll have these health licensing official rules permanently in place in June 8th. We can keep those and live with them forever. If you want different ones, the RAC needs to be meeting and meeting and meeting, and drafting and drafting and drafting. And when we're done, we go to the board and then the same process will happen. Again. Does that make sense? Okay.
Amanda, yes. Mel? This is Mel speaking. Are there any additions that we can make now? I'm not trying to be critical of the rules. No,
I'm just gonna talk. Since the board had the opportunity to remove some things from the proposed rules, is there gonna be another opportunity for that? Like I'm thinking specifically of the educational interpreter piece of having the term only accepting the secondary EIPA. And we needed to make it more general because that impacts so many working interpreters. There's little tweaks like that that are gonna impact major systems.
Right, well, yeah, I mean, the proposed rules won't have it,
They,
but it is a proposal, remember. It's a proposal, not a permanent until it's a permanent. So if you don't like what's proposed, then you come to the hearing, you write comments, you do all of the things that the purpose of having a rulemaking process that you don't like it, give suggestions on how you think it should be. Obviously, we'll have be farther down the road here. And the board kind of already knows, a lot of them already listen to track, either listen to it after the meeting or actually online listen to it in real time. And they actually went over a few things and like table this, table this, table this. So yeah. And part of the process of the rulemaking process is all of these timelines. So you have to notify legislators 49 days before a rule becomes permanent. So that you have to back it all the way out 49 days and so you gotta get it in Oregon Bulletin. Oh, you know, sometimes that can be a full 3 months. So that's what happens when I start to come up against these timelines, which is not very fun. Otherwise, we can have all of April too.
Amanda? Oh, Carrie. Sorry, Carrie. Amanda, I'll have my turn first, then Carrie. Oh, what did you just say, Sammy? Yes, it seems that we have two things happening. The board is proposing the rules. And as individuals, we can give our comments, but simultaneously, the rules, the RAC committee, we can meet and develop a proposal for the next time, correct?
Yes,
Just wanted to be sure I was clear.
this is Sammy. Yes, that is, it's 2 tracks happening.
And Carrie said yes.
I guess that's what I wanted to clarify, because I think that making that a simple statement yesterday to the board helped them to understand you're doing both things at the same time. You're making the permanent rules because we have such a short deadline, but at the same time, everybody, like you guys, are still making proposed rules for future to fix everything that's not right. So both tracks at the same time, but you got it.
Amanda said, yep, same page. This is Darcy speaking. I have a question. The board meeting that just happened. Did they make decisions that we are able to see? So that we can look at. Can we make recommendations based on what they rule, or? Do we have our own process? Do we need to, when we examine. The proposals.
We get to look at any of the decisions that the board has already made and tweak those. Go ahead, Sammy.
Not now, no, not as a governing body.
Well,
I think part of Darcy's comment, I think what I was understanding was also, if the board made any decisions about something, we don't want to waste time on that work today if it's already different.
Right.
So if you would direct us, like, if we're going to talk about something, but the board already made a determination and shifted something, we would like to have access to that information so we don't waste time talking
All
about
of
it.
your copies.
Okay, yeah,
They literally changed one thing. They deleted a line.
Okay.
That is it.
okay. Great day. Okay.
Natalie,
Yeah, just have one question. So like if the rules become permanent in June 8th, do we know that they already have like a timeline? Like, okay, all interpreters have to be in compliance by this date specifically, or? Is that-
Sammy,
Yes, so by June 8th, all interpreters will have had to reapply, pay the fee. So let me say this, remember, all of this is like this because we had a board start meeting in January and the US needed to be licensed by June. So all of this is out of order. This is not how it would normally happen. Normally it would start a year later. So all this process would be happening now, and then you have to be licensed a year later, but that is not what happened. So it's more complicated this way, obviously, so. Now, that's why we're in this predicament.
yes, Amber,
This is Amber speaking. I think I'm lacking a little bit of history as to why it was rolled out that way. And I think a lot of the people who are stakeholders in this are also wondering why it was rolled out this way. Do we have more information that we can share on that?
Sure, I've actually sent out several communications, or maybe I'm not communicating it accurately that people can understand. So, I don't have a copy. Okay.
while you're looking, the interpreters are going to switch.
So, let me see. We have the house. It's fine. It's fine.
I'm okay.
So.
Oh, I was gonna say, are you gonna tell the internet is freezing, just so you guys know? And then carry your comment.
So this is House Bill 2696. So this is the law or the statute that we were given to create this information from. So we had to go off of this information.
I miss, Amanda, what was your comment on the debt?
Sorry, moving back over on their side.
So please, we have some movement in the room. We're getting resituated.
This is Christie.
Christie, yep.
So if I'm recalling correctly, the all call for board and members went out in August. I guess I'm wondering about the delay between August and starting in January.
I'm gonna explain to you. Never. Actually, it wasn't even.
Okay, Sammy.
So everyone knows the House Bill 2696 created the board and, 7 members and, their very specific positions. So what the bill also did is on page 11 of this, is it gives you a bunch of timelines.
Hold on just a second.
Page 11.
Okay.
Number section 31.
Just one moment.
So section 31 says sections 1 to 14. So everything in sections 1 and 14 of this packet become operative January 1st, 2024. So the board becomes a board, licensing begins, all these things happen, right? So that's January 1st, 2024. Within these 1 to 14, health licensing office doesn't make any decisions. It all says so section 2, little b, little c has at least 3 years of 3 years qualifying experience as determined by the board. There was no board until January 1st, 2024. So if there's no board to make rules, you got health licensing office rules. Does that make sense? And so if the bill went in place. The governor signed it. Oh, I keep that out there. Sometime in July. So from July to January 1st, the governor's office had to appoint new members. So that's why in August, we put out the call for board members. And then I think they appointed them, November 5th, I think does that sound right? Around there.
Go ahead, Christie.
This is Christie. So just from my own understanding, with other bills, or what should have happened with this would have been all the work and all the board meetings happen. And then it goes into effect at a time when it's all been decided. Correct. But someone was really ambitious.
Someone wasn't paying attention. Somebody probably didn't erase from the previous session and left the date that they had 2 years before. That's my guess. But yeah, it's created quite a development. So yeah.
Thank you, Amanda.
This is Amanda, I was the English, so I'm asking Sammy. There is no mechanism to deal with typos like that? If we were to consider it a typo?
Sammy, this is Sammy. Yes, there is a mechanism. Take it back to the legislature. Yeah.
Amber?
Yeah, this is Amber. Thank you for pointing all of these things out. I have read this document a bunch of times, and then once I got past all of the details about the actual
Yeah.
licenses, I decided that was no longer of interest to me. So I appreciate you having these prepared too. I really appreciate that
Yeah.
and being able to know exactly why this has been rolled out the way that it has. So thank you very much for taking the time to explain that.
Absolutely.
This is Christie. So are we at a point now where we recognize that this will indeed go into effect June 8th? That we are going to continue to do our work? And we need to decide if we're meeting next week and how many meetings are following.
Yeah,
Yep, Sammy.
We can decide that now, we can decide it at the end, it's live to you guys. I brought the calendar.
Should we set it up now, Mrs. Darcy, or at the end of the meeting? I'd like to get your guys' feedback. Mrs. Darcy talking.
Hold on just a second.
We need the interpreter to copy sign these, so. Mel?
This is Mel. I propose we discuss that at the end because I shall lose steam immediately if we do not dive into these activities.
Amanda? Then you were asking us about the language about,
There's one sentence you said that they deleted at Wednesday's meeting. Can you show us what that was? What that was.
Yes, I didn't actually hand that out yet. It's under, I can tell you, it's under the generalist and supervisor. They deleted.
What packet are we looking at?
You don't have it, because I only handed you out 2 things. Because last time I gave you everything and then you guys threw everything up in the air. So I gave you something. But it's, if you haven't, which I haven't, it's just they deleted. Okay. RID, reverse skills certificate. That is it.
yes, Amanda? This is Amanda speaking. So that decision was a unanimous decision, it's already been agreed upon, it's a done deal. And can we provide feedback to that during public comment? So we can discuss that later as a dual process.
So, yes, they voted as a packet with that one change, as a proposal. And yes, any of you can make comments during the public comment period. I'm gonna be ready to start. This is Sammy, are you ready to start? Okay, so what I handed out to you is this. So it's has the fancy letterhead, and this just kind of walks you through what we have authority for. So the first one, and it's only because it's the one page I couldn't get, it's not landscape, is settings. So what each license, where they can work. So supervisor can work in general setting, educational setting, medical setting, and legal setting. Then just works its way down. Provisional can only work in a general setting. Legal can work in general, education, and legal. Medical can work in general, education, and medical. Education can only work in education. So it walks you through all the reasons, and those are law. And so what I did is I also provided you the law from this packet. This is the provisional packet. So I have new questions for you guys now. On this, the second packet here. Says provisional license. And there's quite a few more questions for you. And the first one is the law. So this is what we have. This is what the parameters we have to work under. in provisional license. Page 3, I was able to get the PDF to page number. Page 3, the provisional packet. I don't know what time it was last night. Sometime last night, I did this. So the first one is everyone has to be 18 years of age, you can't be 17, can't be 16, you gotta be at least 18. The legislature was very clear about that. The legislature said that a provisional license holder, to get it, you have to demonstrate compliance with the code of professional conduct authored by RID.
Can we back up just a little bit?
Yes.
I'm a little lost as to what this is starting to see.
Okay. So now this is the provisional license packet. I guess I kind of jumped around. That was my fault. So I guess these documents are sister documents, I think. It will just depend how you guys want to look at things. So it's really up to you, what's comfortable for you. But this is, like I said, the law, the parameters that the legislature gave us to work under. So one of them is a license issued under this section may be renewed up to 5 times. So that is it. You don't get 6 times, you don't get 9 times, you get 5 times. So every time we start to want something, we're gonna go back to this and see what we cannot have. Okay. Hoping to help. And then the next one, for provisional, I added everything. Page 4 of this packet. I've already made your suggested changes on it, but based on those, I have questions on page 1 and 2. New question. And then page 6 and
Hold on just a
7.
second. Okay, and then you said page.
This is Sammy, page 6 and 7 is the supervision examples. And I just Googled a lot of things and then took what I have in a lot of my rules and then also went out to licensed professional counselors. And they're just places to start, really.
I'm like just giving a thumbs up.
That's this.
This is Christie. I'm not sure if now is the time to ask this question, but I'm going to, it would be table. We had wondered about the possibility of having so 5 times, but can it be good for 5 years? There was some little loophole that you made mention of, and so did you find an answer to that
I
question?
did, and it's no. And it's because of the intent. So the intent of what I found in it's HLO laws. So some boards, when we got them, nursing home administrators, which is now long-term care, they had set license dates. Everybody expired January 31st. Every nursing home administrator in the lane. Well, that's not how HLO operates. So we can shake it up and kick everybody out to a different date. But what that law does, it says, if you do that, you must notify them that you're changing the date of expiration or inactive status. But that's what the intent is, the intended use of that law is that not to allow for a 1-year license to be 5 years. Does that make sense?
Please pause while the interpreters switch.
Thank you.
We're ready. Thank you.
Okay, I mean, you guys want to just start with question 1 and we have all the time in the world. We have our rules June 8th, so if there are things you want to revisit, you want to give each other homework, we can do that. A lot of committees, say, we'll do this and Amber will do that. And, you guys will come all to me and we'll send it out. So we, all kinds of things that we can do. Now that we're not up against this wall. So, so again, if we go to page 3. So page 3 is the law. That we're gonna keep referring to, and 4 and 5 and 6 are the rules. So let's make sure that I got it right. Let's start there. So if I remember correctly, you guys didn't change anything in the who is a provisional
Sorry,
license,
you said page 4, sorry. Karen,
Yes.
You said,
page 4.
This is Christie. So under provisional on page 4, we have discussed and we've identified. So I'm looking specifically at G, which is may not provide SLI services in an educational setting unless the person holds a license under the ORS blah, blah, blah. Which means they have the EIPA. So if they have the EIPA, they can work in the educational setting.
Sammy, this is Sammy, no. So let's flip back to page 3. And if we go to 3 little b. So a licensed provisional sign language interpreter may not provide sign language interpreting services in an educational, legal, or medical setting without a license issued under these laws. So you must have an educational license to provide education.
Christie,
That's something that we would, this is Christie, so that's something we would want to revisit. And or is that a longer list? We have to change. Yes, but we have that to go longer list.
Sam? This is Sammy. So there has been discussion, for the board is aware that a lot of provisional license holders work in education as getting part of their experience. You know, it's just part of what happens. And not allowing them to work in all of these settings, where else are they gonna work? So the board is aware, and what I think is gonna happen is there is going to be a new license type, specialty license. Maybe a learner license, but some people don't like that name. I don't know if it's- But that will be for you guys to flush that out. So they are aware. We need to do a little, because originally they actually approved this temporary rule to put this learner license in. The problem is it was very like no limitations, and it was people in rural areas, but there was no definition on what rule was. So it's basically saying anybody can do whatever they want anytime they want, as long as that direct supervision. What's the point of the license? You can do this forever, as long as you have direct supervision. I mean, that wasn't defined. So, a little more, research needs to be done on that one, but they are aware that this point. Very aware. Why they limited the provisional from working in any of all these settings, I don't know. To be honest.
This is not, Christie, I mean, but if they have the EIPA 3.5, they would just get the educational license. They would bypass provisional. So any new hires, you guys are already doing that in theory, right? So it would be getting people that are hired now that don't have the EIPA 3.5, pulling them up. Am I reading? Is that our understanding? Yeah, okay. But this is no, I'm not done. I'm a slow talker. There may be places in Oregon, though, that are hiring interpreters that are not in compliance with the Oregon Department of Ed. And this will be a bigger issue for rural Oregon.
Okay, there's lots of head nods to that comment. This is Darcy, I guess, Caitlin.
This is Caitlin. Yes, it will definitely affect rural interpreters. I can guarantee that. Also, as of now, provisional is the only general license that does not, or that requires additionally having to be educational. Written. So as someone who's not yet certified, I have to get 2 licenses in order to be working in both K-12 and K.
You say that again for my slow brain.
Yes. Okay. Caitlin again. So as someone who's not yet certified and wanting to work in the community, I have to have both the educational license and community. Professional. Which will also, again, impact rural educators.
Christie,
This is Christy. I just.
is that a
wanted to make
response to?
The comments that, we, mentioned last time that our goal is to not kick any folks out of the work they're already doing, and I have concerns about requiring people to have multiple licenses to do work.
Tammy?
So Mrs. Sammy, Caitlin is completely right. If you want to work in K through 12, you have to have the education license. And the really great part is, you guys, well, the board and Department of Education get to set what that criteria is. It can be anything that the 2 groups want. And my understanding, Department of Ed just wants to take whatever this group decides. In the way the education rule is currently written is it has both, because what was happening from what they wanted to do is put what we had in, but we didn't have anything. So, and then it was going to be a loophole. It's going to be a round robin. So we just put in as a catch-all, whatever they say, and then we just identically put what it says for that. And I gave you that information so you can kind of see what it is. But again, we are bound by the law and what we can do. But the board is aware that this is an issue. So you would need to get the provisional license and to work in the community. And then you need to get the education license to work in K through 12. Now, here's the great thing. You guys can define what medical setting is, right? You can decide that, to give this example to the board, my physician doesn't take insurance, doesn't take public money. He doesn't have to get an interpreter of any kind if he doesn't want to. He's not bound by the HCI or the healthcare registry. Any doctor that takes MHP or Medicaid, Medicare, public money is bound to get an interpreter, spoken or signed, with the registry. So if there are other things outside of the registry that you want to define as the medical setting, you can do that. And so there's all kinds of things. Yes, I didn't think that was no. So that loud wasn't helpful. Yeah.
I'm sorry, interpreter misread.
Sorry, no, what I said was not helpful. Delete the medical setting part.
This is Lori, and Christy, correct me if I misunderstood last week, but we spoke with ODE last week, and my understanding from them is that they are going to change the wording in the OAR to reflect that they are going along with whatever HLO says are going to be the criteria for educational interpreter. So I'm concerned that both of y'all are going to be referring to the other, and there will be nothing there.
So this is Sammy, you should be concerned, but what the law says, that's on page 3, is that it's definitive that wrong one. I have the education one over here. It says definitively meets the requirements established by Oregon Department of Education. So whatever's in their rule the education licensee has to meet. I think that lack of experience is the person who's doing the role is new. So I don't think that they're getting that it is going to be like this. So what we did in the HLO laws is we said, anything, or in the HLO rule, anything the ODE has in their requirement, you have to meet it. And then we just copy and pasted what that was and put it in HLOs. Because we haven't been doing this a long time. So it's just a matter of getting everybody on the same page. And I have like direct access to our attorney, and I don't think that's the mechanism that ODE uses. So there's just a lot of things at play when you're dealing with other agencies. But we're aware that we won't let the loophole happen. But yeah, the law says you gotta follow whatever they say. Wish you better news.
This is Darby. Just want some clarification for myself, so maybe the educational interpreters can help me. This is Darcy talking. So ODE right now, for the educational license, they require 3.5 or above for the EIPA, correct, right? So meaning now our RAC rules should be 3.5 to match ODE. So later, so meaning the educational license is 3.5 or above. Meaning the OAR for the provisional license, we can just kind of, I'm just making an example, like here, we could make it a minimum of 3.0 and then higher temporarily to include, you know, for the 2 to 3 years until they can meet that. Is that, am I understanding that correctly? Like that's just an idea. Could that work with the RAC rules?
You can absolutely do that. You mean lower the provisional standard so they can automatically meet the education standard? Yes, Darcy, you guys can do that.
This is Darcy looking around the room. Something to consider. This is Darcy, just something that I was thinking, just trying to figure out a pathway. Let's do Amanda and then Sammy. So this is Amanda here. We still have to change the law, right? So I'm writing down on my long things of things, so I did write that down. Oh, Nessa, and that's it. Nessa, did you have your hands? I thought I saw you. Okay, go ahead, Sammy.
So this is Sammy. So it's not unusual that when you first bring a profession into the licensing world, that you start your minimum standards lower, because you're not gonna have everybody that meets the same ones. Not everybody has went to the RAD or done this or had that. So you start them a little bit lower. Maybe you find different pathways of education, you know, all kinds of different things. I can give you all kinds of examples of what other programs have done. So it's not unusual. It wouldn't be, you know, downplaying the profession if something like that were to occur. It would be totally legit.
We're gonna take a moment and switch interpreters.
Ready. We ready to start with questions? And let me just say, this is Sammy, and some of these are just because I don't know. And I have a hard time writing a rule and I don't know the answer. So if they seem like, you know, arbitrary or very, why don't you know that? It's because I just don't know, and I'm not. Gonna know. So I did try to add, if the RAC did something, I tried to add it there, and then I've also made the change in the document on page 3 and 4 and 5.
Can you hold on a second?
Yeah.
Val?
or Sammy or Mel?
I thought I had enough coffee today, but apparently I did not, so, okay. Because the other proposed rules are going to be the permanent ones until we fix things and propose them through the RAC process, public comment. Does that currently hold the SLIPI or the ASLPI is maintained in those ones? I bring this up as the ones submitted now because we don't have time to do a specialty license. That's not going to happen by June 8th. I want a clarification that we've maintained a pathway for non-certified deaf interpreters to be able to work. And if that is currently the provisional license, what qualification on that list does a DI have access to get that license? Was I clear?
No.
Okay.
Are you on best?
Sorry. So because what we're working on now is future stuff. The stuff that's being proposed for the permanent rule, does that still keep the SLIPI, the ASL interpreter assessment, the sign language proficiency assessment as a pathway for deaf interpreters to be able to obtain some type of licensure to work in the state of Oregon?
Sammy?
This is Sammy, yes.
Thank you.
Sam?
This is Sammy, just so I'm full circling it. In last week, you guys took it out, but you put in the 60 hours, which you just defined that, but is that?
But that is for future. law.
Right, I just want to make sure that I'm fully understanding the concepts here.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
very good. Okay, so.
Darcy, would you mind pausing just for a moment? I need a few minutes to read through the information. And then we can proceed. Is everybody okay with that?
This is Sammy, yes, and I do apologize that we didn't get them in advance. But I'm only one human being, so, yeah, and I need more time.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah. 10 minutes? Yeah, 10 minutes would be great. A 10-minute break.
I only had, everybody knows where to go.
Only left out. I'll do better next time. There we go.
Are we ready?
Mhm.
Sammy, this is Sammy. Are we ready? And I just wanted to question my
Hold on
question.
just a second. All right. I'll go. Hold off on this. Darcy, I'll hold off on this. Okay.
This is Sammy. Do we want to just go question by question? You want to start? Okay. So, well, I think we'll probably, and then we'll want to refer back to the new rule, because I put in what I heard you guys say last time, so I want to make sure that I got it right. Because these questions go with what you want to do. Okay. So are the requirements listed in 816-025, 0110 accurate? And you guys already went through it. You took out the NAD3, you consolidated the EIA and you consolidated the TBEI, and you added the 60 hours of signing interpreting, training, and education.
Amanda, give a thumbs up.
This is Christine. I know we had a lengthy conversation, 10, 12, 16, how many hours? And I think that part of what we're gonna do today is define what that 60 hours is, but I also wonder if now that we have all the time in the world, that we do a little more research in regards to I wonder what heritage spoken language folks, what does it look like for them? Rather than arbitrarily picking a number, do we want to base it on something that's happening as a standard in the, I don't know.
Yeah, this is kind of so for medical interpreting, it's 60 hours. 60 hours for spoken languages.
This is Sammy. So just to clarify for me. It's my understanding that medical people are more experienced, well, at least in this scenario. And so this 60 hours is for non-experienced people. So I want to just make sure, what am I looking for when I'm looking at spoken language? Like, do they have interns? Do they have professional licenses? Like that type of thing? You know, people in training that have been.
Amanda.
This is Amanda, I'm gonna speak English, since Sammy just established. So I think, I like the idea of researching, and I think what we're gonna find is either conference level interpreting, which has like master's degrees required to serve as spoken language interpreters, and then community-based spoken language interpreters who have almost no structure for non-medical, non-legal, education. Okay, that's great. And so I like this idea of kind of collecting that, but making sure that we get the whole gamut as opposed to just one of it.
So this is Sammy. Can you just explain to me? Community-based, heritage, CODA, SODA. I feel like I know what they are, but I feel like some of these are interchangeable. I don't really know. Like, what is heritage? That's the thing. Tell me what that is.
Amanda, I'm happy to start attempting to answer that for you. Heritage language typically, in my understanding, means the language of your home that isn't English in America. So like I'm a native English speaker, my parents both speak English, but I'm not a heritage English user in the United States, but in another country, I'm not gonna do that. Does that make sense? Like your context makes a difference, right? A CODA is a child of a deaf adult and they come in many forms, may or may not be heritage users or maybe heritage users of ASL.
And
What's the other word?
so Sammy, and they, the CODA could be deaf, could be hearing. Is that right?
I'm not getting,
Eric
See.
Cooks.
Yeah.
Family somewhere, I think he said. Yeah, another one, said. CODA. Something. It was something, anyway, and then what's a community based? Like they learned it in the community, they don't have official training.
the way I used that when I was speaking was meaning that they interpret in the community. So in spoken language, and Natalie can correct me, but in spoken language, there's kind of this bucket, two buckets that happen. One is a conference level interpreter. So those are people like at the UN and like big world stage kinds of places. And then there are community-based spoken language interpreters who do all the things in the community, including medical, legal, education, any other places that spoken language interpreting would be used.
Sammy.
Sammy, is the heritage for spoken and sign? Does it mean the same? And does the community base mean the same? For spoken and sign? Okay.
Let's be interpreter, lots of head nods. Go ahead, Mel. This is Darcy. Go ahead, Mel.
To understand a little bit more, I'll take you back a little bit. Another step. Okay. So the training for American Sign Language interpreters is based off of the Americans with Disability Act, and the Rehab Act gave seed money to train programs to take hearing interpreters who didn't have family members who were deaf. So we were not heritage signers. So we are an early start, our profession started taking sign language classes to learn ASL. And then from that track, we have professional training and education. Most spoken language interpreters interpret into their native language, which is their heritage language. Like they learn English later through the community, throughout, there's no formalized training. So you have the ADA versus the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The Civil Rights Act ensures that people who don't speak English can still have access to things, different laws, different funding streams, different approaches to how we do the work.
This is Darcy. This is Darcy speaking. I'd also like to add, was born and raised, I was born deaf, raised signing. My family and my entire family signed. So ASL, all of us learned ASL, and that has been passed down to us, culture involved with that language and everything. So that's one example. Then there's another group where a CODA, a child of a deaf adult, it's a hearing child of a deaf adult, they have a little bit different ways. Some children don't learn sign language. Maybe their parents speak to them and sign a little bit, but they're not actually fluent in sign language. And then there's another side of the gamut where the child is totally fluent. Their parents only signed with them. They didn't do any sort of English and sign language mix. So there's such a variety of children with deaf adults as parents, depending on what their first language is. Sometimes it's English, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's ASL. So are they all qualified to interpret? I would say no. So just because someone is a CODA, maybe their parents didn't prioritize giving them ASL access, and maybe they learned sign language, but maybe they are not as fluent, as another person. Maybe they're, another child's parents were really emphasized the signing environment, and so that they do have, more skill. So there's such a variety. And dynamics are a lot different. And this is different. And then, because of that variety, we can't, because of the backgrounds being all different and experiences being all different, with the cultural competency and the skill competency, we can't say that they all can be interpreters just because they had a deaf parent.
And maybe they don't get into the deaf community much.
So because that group is so varied, if a hearing family has a deaf child and they have a brother or a sister, who is deaf, that means they have a SOTA is a sibling of a deaf adult. And so they usually have some sort of signing in their family or not. Does that help a little bit, Sammy? And Nesta, did you want to add something?
So
to add to this. So I'm the oldest of 4. There's 4 kids in my family. I am the oldest, and I have a sister. And then I have a brother, and then I have another brother. So I signed starting at 6 months old. I spoke much later. Same-ish with the following siblings, whatever. It was all around that time. So I would say I'm very fluent. My parents did not speak and sign at the same time. My next sister is pretty good, but her attitude is terrible. So she chooses not to sign it, right? That was her choice. And then, and my third sibling is an audio learner, my brother, and mom and dad had this in common because he couldn't learn through visual. The visual part did not click for him. So my parents using sign language and English at the same time. Oh, sorry, sim calming means signing and talking. So example.
So if
Um,
I was signing and talking at the same time, that's considered simulating.
Okay, that was a good example. And then my baby brother, our fourth sibling, is kind of a mix. So there's a 15-year gap between the third and fourth. So his exposure to talking and signing, so he can really transfer between both of those modalities pretty well. So here, in just my one family, there's this huge variety. So where I have a friend's family, there's 2 kids with a deaf mother. Dad is hearing. The kids, like, their signing is, they don't sign well. It's kind of, and that's pretty common to have this much of a variety in even with the same thing. There's these, thank you.
That helps.
Yes.
We're gonna pause for the interpreters to switch, please. We're ready.
Uh, So this is Sammy. Do you guys want to go to page 5? And page 5 will go with questions 1 and 2. And just make sure that I got page 5, number 5, A through little d right.
Just 1 second. So page 5, number 5,
A through
D.
D. And they go with questions 1 and 2 on page 1. So just to go over it, first one is EIPA score of 3.5 or above. I just commingled them and made it generic. The next one is TDEI basic certificate or above. And the next one is have you passed the Center for Assessment of Sign Language Interpretation General Knowledge Exam, or having obtained 60 hours of education or training in any combination thereof in sign language interpretation and form prescribed by the office.
And what was your last part of that sentence? Interpretation and
On a form prescribed by the office. Thank you. In this scenario, we need to define what 60 hours is, but it sounds like we might want to do some research about that first.
take this one on the code.
Darcy, no, Amanda. This is Amanda speaking. I want, hopefully not to open a can of worms, but the TBEI. Understand that some states rely on using the BEI testing, but they call it something different. It's in their state. They might call it, I mean, it's the same exam, same test, but the credential under that state is called something different. So if you move from Michigan and you show the TBEI, I'm just wondering how to be sure that we don't make it overly complicated to move here. If a state relies on BEI instead, it's called that. What do you think? I'm just wondering. And Darcy is calling on Lori.
This is Lori. Could we just add to that or its equivalent, something like that?
Amanda's nodding yes. Nitha? So. I'm sorry. Okay. It's my understanding that maybe we can table number 4 and 5 until later, for later discussion. Is that correct? So, yes.
So you say question number 4 and 5?
But we need to research it, correct? Is it Darcy speaking? And just like Nissa was saying, we had a discussion about numbers 4 and 5, about the 60-hour training. We were doing some investigation about the deaf interpreters who have not yet become CDI, certified deaf interpreters, and it seems that currently there used to be a 60-hour training required, and most average about 40 hours now. Some trainings provide 60, some trainings provide 40. So thinking about the deaf interpreters who aren't yet certified, shouldn't this be similar? Or is it a separate license for deaf interpreters who have not yet been certified? I would like to do more research on the number of hours to be sure. To get some background and then discuss it further. Amber? I'll wait for first. You.
This is Amber. I am all for making sure that we are creating pathways that are accessible. I'm also even more for keeping a provisional license that can house both deaf and hearing interpreters. And the reason why I feel that way is because we're looking at it from an equitable standpoint. There shouldn't be any barriers at all, right? So if we're able to submit a whole concept of what the provisional license can look like that can house everyone without any barriers, without any, I still want to respect that there are different pathways, there's different trainings, I totally do. But if we're looking at it in an equitable lens, I feel like that can be done by having that under all in one, if that makes sense.
Okay, yes, I understand. And Christy?
This is Christy, to piggyback on that. I think because these rules are going into effect June 8th, I think we have to factor in deaf interpreters under that provisional right now. Otherwise, there isn't a pathway. Can we have it on specialty license yet?
Okay, and now? No, Sammy, Sammy first.
And maybe I misheard. Did you say because these rules are going into effect June 8th? You're not going into effect June 8th.
Right. No, this is yours.
I kept saying, you gotta tell me what you're
Yeah,
saying.
no, I think I'm just still being hopeful.
Yeah. We shouldn't, when we go back to the little
Never
update,
mind.
just keep going back. Sorry.
I really want them to change my
I really wish I could change them.
Okay, Mel?
And this is Mel. It is historically an issue where we try to have people that are outside the majority fit into the majority's format. These rules were written for our 98% hearing interpreters. As an afterthought, we're trying to force in deaf interpreters to find a pathway for them. So I hear what you're saying. They absolutely need their own specialty license. Absolutely.
Sammy?
So this is Sandy. Earlier Darcy talked about, how did you put it? Where if we have 60 hours and that's what you guys determine is the standard, great. Or you can determine it's 10 hours, or you can determine it's 120 hours. So if you think to start off, everybody should get 40 hours, that's what you think is in the middle for deaf interpreters, not deaf interpreters, everybody, then go with 40. Don't go with 60. You don't have to overcomplicate things sometimes. Sometimes you just go with the lower standard so everybody fits in the mold. And maybe you add an ethics training or something like that. So you don't always have to overcomplicate. I do have a question out there. I think it's possible to do, if necessary, I don't think it's necessary, like a deaf provisional license and a regular. I think it's possible. I don't know that it's actually necessary. maybe it's necessary in the future, but I think the first time around, I think you guys said it earlier. You gotta start it with a little lower level so everybody can get in, because not everybody's gonna meet all the standards. They're just not. It's not how professions work. And this is even starting in medical, where they're dealing with blood, all these things, that's how they start too. So it's not just you guys, everybody. So think of it in those ways, in that.
And Amber?
This is Amber speaking. I just want to clarify my comment. I still think that there should be a deaf interpreter specialty license. I'm just saying that specifically for the provisional, that it should be accessible for all. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Amanda? So this is Amanda. Yeah, we do need 2 levels. We have a minimum to get into the door. That minimum should apply to all, and then the minimum should be a standard qualification.
This is the interpreter. If the voice interpreter is not saying what you want, please sign it again. Please.
They are doing great.
Great.
I was thinking.
Perfect.
This is Amanda again. If we want to discuss this and get a pulse out from the community, that's fine, that's good information, but also we have our minimum standard for the entry level to this license. And then we can progress it over time and the licensees can work towards meeting those requirements. It's good information to know what is out there now, so, but what's available now, but the 40 hours would be a minimum level to get people in the door and then I'm sorry, get them in the door and then just set up the minimum for the provisional. That's what I'm thinking. Have something, a standard, a common minimal qualification for everybody. Darcy is saying, well, Sammy, Mel.
Yeah. We have been talking about the specialty licensing a lot. I'm gonna need to know what that looks like. Just saying it doesn't make it so. I gotta know what you want. And that's where we can balance out, is it necessary? Is there something, can we do it differently? So just be mindful of that. These things don't just occur. Yeah, we type by them, so just be mindful of that. But we have time, right? We have all the time in the world.
Darcy is saying. Okay, Darcy's calling on Mel.
So Sammy, when I was on the medical board of HCI, we were housed in the Office of Equity and Inclusion up at OHA. And we had a lot of ability to create things and sub-working groups. Is that where we're ending up down the road? Are we gonna have that type of staffing and support? No. Okay, I bring that up because we created a group that approved what the trainings looked like and what the trainings had to include.
Sammy.
So this is Sammy. It's possible, but not right now. That position is not filled. So I'm it. And they're not, it's basically she does, that position does, exam committees, curriculum committee, training programs. That's, she does, that position does all of that. Yeah, so there is a position for that.
So, okay, that's future.
Yeah, and kind of how Sammy it would work is that position and me would work together. So if the change is being made by that position, it's usually going to move into a rule or something. And then that's where, but we have joint, like I'm doing a joint committee next week for cosmetology, curriculum committee and a rules advisory committee together. So that happens a lot. They work in tandem, so yes, it's possible. It's not right.
This is, well, Darcy, but you can go now.
Okay, and I just have a question. This is Natalie. I just have a question about, that Mel was saying, but, I think you mentioned earlier that, we could also work out in groups as well, like, we could assign, let's say Mel, Lori and Nessa, they can work on specific things. Is there something that they could, like if we assign or people volunteer, for those groups? Why not to look at, let's say, what would be mandatory, like the education and stuff, is that something that we can do? So, we have specialized people looking at certain areas and then sharing with the team.
This is Sammy. So I would say yes, but individually, not in a group, only because just the perception is weird and it just keeps it clean if people are doing it individually and then they're coming through me and it's going out to the whole group. It just really, it's definitely possible, but it's better to do it that way. And if, we need to have like a business meeting and Melanie, you have to meet, and so the three of us meet together and talk, and then I funnel it, you know what I mean? So there's ways to do it, but it's just, we gotta keep it. Public meeting.
And this is Darcy speaking. Also, consider for the provisional license. Let's say we establish 40 hours for that category. That means they need to have those hours completed before applying for the provisional license. So I'm looking at the paperwork that says, well, last time we agreed on this, the 12 hours of continuing education annually. So the 40 hours initially, plus the 20 hours additional every year, that should be, or excuse me, 12 hours every year. So that should be sufficient to kind of balance things out. Perhaps the 60 hours feels overwhelming in the beginning, especially possibly for a deaf interpreter. So I think we could start with the 40-hour requirement, make sure that it includes discussion of ethics. And then also actually practicing interpreting. Help me out. What other categories? Processing, Amanda is saying, processing. And make sure that, we test all of, well, let me think. Yeah, okay, passing the knowledge exam would be a minimum. So then the focus would be on English, the English side of interpreting in terms of processing. We would need to have some training specifically on the English part of it. And I think that's what could be included in the 40 hours. We're going to switch for the interpreters. Please. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead.
This is Sammy. So do you want to assign out research on this 40? Do you want to just say 40 and then you tell me what that training experience looks like? Someone gets assigned that.
Who wants to volunteer? There's Stephanie, who wants to volunteer? Do we need 2 or 3 people that could maybe work on that later? That is a proposal.
So
Do you want to vote on that?
maybe we could have,
Sammy?
so maybe we could have somebody deciding what this 40 hours looks like. So maybe it's mentoring, this and that, processing. And then need to know in person, online, a combination. Must they have in person for 10 hours? Must they have, and everything else can be not in person? And then what do you want to see when the application comes in? Do you want to see signature from somebody? Do you just want them to attest that they did it? Like, how far do you want to go down that road? That's for you to tell us so that licensing knows what they should be expecting. And so it might be a couple people doing the same things. You said a couple people doing. A couple people doing single things.
This is Amanda. Okay, kind of related back to Darcy's comment. I really like the idea about the written, the AS, the written, I was like thinking Castley, written test. So we identify how many hours we need for the ethics, how much for history, how much for legal. And then down the road, we can do the 12 hours annually. We can identify those, you know, the processing, the mentoring, the analyzing, whatever it is. And I'm happy to volunteer to propose something for those 40 hours. I really do like that idea, I like that concept. You know, you're still looking for a minimum standard. Like the COSLI, so you have the minimum standard. And then you also have the 40 hours. So I think if we could do something pretty equivalent to something like that, I really like that idea. This is Darcy. I forgot to call on myself. I just started talking and sorry, excuse me, this is Darcy. And Amanda, related to your comment, looking at the list of like things here. Flipping through my papers, where was that? Where did it go? I can't find it now. The EIPA 3.5. Oh, 5A through D on page 5. Looking at the minimums. So if you have a deaf person who, and which category would they go into? 1? The COSLI test 1, is that all they have, or and because hearing people have lots of other options, lots of other tests to take. So is that something we need to look at too for equality reasons, just to like view it holistically? We just need to keep an account of equality. This is Amanda. I actually propose to get rid of the COSLI.
No.
And Amanda, can you say that again? Get rid of the COSLI. I'm gonna repeat that, thank you. Darcy, you were just talking about 5A through D. And so I propose we get rid of the first couple and just stay with the last 2. Amanda, for
Clarification, I don't have the paper, the 2 that you want to keep is that the COSLI and the C and D.
and the 40 hours. That's a thought. Just for the provisional. Nissa? Sweet, thank you. Yeah, this is Nissa. I'd like to add that we can really have a focus group, like focus on the 40 hours. And I don't feel like I would be a good fit for that group. It has to be a group with experience, and I don't have that kind of experience. So I think this one's. I'd like for people to be in that process who has the experience.
This is Sammy. We're talking about having, if we're going with what Amanda said, you have the COSLI or the 40 hours.
Lots of
Not an and.
Yes, correct. Amanda saying. This is Amanda. Amanda, go ahead. I can wait. Mel also had. This is Amanda. I'm just also thinking too, for the provisional, we want people to get in. I mean, that's our goal. We want people to have access to the, we want people to have interpreters. We want people to have access. We want people to have people to.
We want people to be able to step up and advise our provisional interpreters. So the improvement,
So
we don't want them to be alone.
They're not out in the world alone all by themselves. We want them to have some support. So I think the COSLI and the 40 hours is a good way to do that.
Or.
Or, yes, costly or the 40 hours, yes.
Agreed.
Necessity fees. I'm still, I'm still thinking it trailed off, it will come back to me.
This is Amber. So if this is completely off, sorry, if this is completely off the topic, and not the meeting where we're at right now, that's fine, we can table it for a later time, but I'm just wondering how, like, students of the profession and interns might fit into this as well. If we are having interns on assignment going to schools or any type of area where they are undergoing an internship, will they also need to be applying for a professional license? So I just wanted to throw that out there as a consideration. If we can talk about it, great. If not, we can table it for a later time, but I just wanted to mention that.
So Darcy, back, this is Mel speaking, back to what you were saying a little bit earlier.
No, I have a small favor.
Yeah, can we,
I'm really sorry because I can't see that. Is it possible to come here so that she can get used to it? Or I'm gonna go. No, she doesn't.
Oh,
You don't have to change the story. It's probably not even nowhere.
So everyday community work. So interpreters with a provisional license show up with only 40 hours of training and experience, right? So is that a qualified interpreter? Would you accept that interpreter for yourself? So if an interpreter was supervising, and they're able to sort of like mentor them and support them, but they're not actually there, but they're sort of like, how would we protect the community? And so if we have a provisional license, that's great. So it's a foot in the door, but at the same time, we need to protect the deaf community and provide good access to quality interview services. So there's a minimum, right? But then there's also the quality piece. So I'm curious what your thoughts on that are. So again, I think we need to look at, hold on just a second.
Because I interpreter agencies.
this is Darcy speaking. I'm responding back to Mel. I mean, that's a good point. There's a lot we do need to look at in the community. We need some community like oversight. We have the interpreting programs and they coordinate with the environments. So they're providing some of that oversight and some of that mentoring time. Other situations, you know, after graduation, interpreters, you know, after graduation, are they ready to go into the community? Some are, some aren't. So we have this other group too that hasn't done the interpreting program and they just start working. And then we've got people working in the medical field and higher level things. So I just think the environment is really going to impact the work as well. I mean, we've got the Portland Community College. We've got interpreters who show up there. We've got a place for me and we have other deaf faculty. I mean, it really affects our work. It affects our jobs. I mean, there's some interpreters that shouldn't accept that work. So, you know, maybe they're more generalists, maybe their skills are in different areas. So there's other work out in the community, like general interpreters, so there's theater stuff, there's RI risk, lower risk interpreting jobs. And those are probably a more acceptable place for those entry level positions where you have some more oversight. So how do you set that up? I don't know. I guess there's maybe a volunteer organization, maybe an interpreting agency. I don't know who's going to be providing this oversight, who's going to provide good matches for interpreters to jobs. I think licensing is going to help, but there's got to be some sort of screening tool to screen out things that aren't really.
So the licensing will be a good filter tool for the future. So for the general, for the provisional license, it's a good base level. But yeah, minimum is a minimum, so I guess we have to start there. We all started there.
This is Sammy, so I mean, I think that's where you decide what's direct supervision and what's indirect supervision. So I don't know how you guys operate on like an 8-hour basis. Is this an 8-hour basis? And is this considered an 8-hour session of interpreting? And they could count, this is 8 hours. You say that provisional license holder supervision, or is this just considered one? I don't know how you guys do it, but you could say if they've done 30 hours of sign language interpreting, they don't have to be directly supervised. Do that. And say something else.
Just gonna take a moment to switch into part of my notes.
This is Lori, and I think what we're all probably struggling with, I know I'm struggling with, is that if someone goes in the medical profession with 30 hours of training, they can put Band-Aids on people. We're talking about access for deaf clients here and whether people are able to independently go do that job or not. So I just want to note that that's the struggle here. It's not just about, being able to go out and do bits and pieces of the job. It's the full-on job if you're going out there and you're interpreting as a provisional interpreter. So it's important that we get this right.
No?
Okay, I'll talk. Part of that I think is defining where provisional interpreters can work. That might help. Again, the type of supervision, so if it's a provisional licensee, they have to have what type of supervision, so we know what types of places they're going into based on a supervisor approving or not approving them. And so we could have different layers of, process in place. But at the same time, there is always the person. The minimum might be a little too low. I like where we're going with that, but at the same time, until we know what the supervision looks like and the other piece, because I'm thinking of the person who that only has 40 hours of training, and we haven't even looked at their sign language skills. We haven't looked at their spoken language skills because they haven't gone through any training. Right, so that opens it up wider, which also then means we might need more details in there.
And then Danny. I just want to add that maybe we could do an amendment, kind of going along with what Mel was saying. Like there has maybe a certain amount of actual working hours, maybe with a DI or something, or a CDI. But have that feedback. I mean, that feedback is amazing, right? And there's no comparison to that. So have that feedback from an interpreter that's been in the field longer, but a deaf interpreter, wow, their feedback is super valuable. So, maybe there has to be some sort of actual supervision hours from a deaf interpreter, if it's possible. I mean, I don't know, but just a thought that I was throwing out there. Just something to think about. And so then so go ahead, Caitlin.
So big concern with that. Again, I'm gonna bring up the rural areas. We have no DIs, no CDIs. And so who would then pay DI for their valuable time to come and observe a provisional interpreter who isn't charging enough to be able to afford to pay that interpreter? I don't know with the higher entity, whatever that setting is. So it's a theater that's putting on a performance, getting a DI to come in and observe provisional interpreter. I don't see how that would go. That is a requirement.
And then we'll go to Amber.
She's still, but I was thinking.
Okay. Oh, then is it Nessa or then Natalie? Which one? Nessa? And is it in regards to what they were just saying?
Couldn't you team interpret with the captain interpreter? On certain jobs, you could. Potentially be with the team.
It could potentially be a team with a deaf interpreter, a CDI, right? And then Caitlin is looking doubtful. I'm not sure. I couldn't see who raised their hands first. So, okay, so Natalie and then Amanda and then Amber.
Yeah, this is Natalie. So one of my concerns about that is that the resources that we have for CDIs. So for instance, work at the hospital, and then sometimes we're trying to look for a CDI to come and assist us, and it's very difficult because there's not many of them available. So if we are having, let's say, our new provisional licensees have to work with a CDI, that might limit also how many, interpreters are gonna be able to have access to the CDI, because again, the resources are so limited. And then also, as just kind of going back with what you just said, like working as a team, usually, again, medical study, that we are having our CDIs working as a team with an ASL interpreter. But then that ASL interpreter is, they have to have the qualifications needed to provide that service. So I feel like working as a team would not be feasible, or not, they would not be able to provide the service. And we don't know how that would work. So just wanted to share that.
Amanda and then Amber. This is Amanda. I did want to respond to your concern. I am watching everybody's concerns about the language. And if we have this provisional licensee and they have the costly or the hours of training set up, and that's how they enter the field. But like Natalie and I were talking during lunch, we could add a statement saying ASL and English, like some sort of proficiency test. But we were saying if they have a degree from an English speaking university, they don't have to take an English proficiency test. Or we could have specific number of hours, saying hours or years of experience of like being taught through, sorry, Amanda, you mind going back? Going through a university or, courses that are in a post-secondary setting, that would count to show your ASL proficiency. That there's potential different pathways in that respect. So I don't know if we can add that language in, but it is an important part of our job as interpreters to have language proficiency. So I was thinking of just adding something to those things, something about language. And Natalie said, you don't have to take, something, some sort of English speaking course, but I don't know, it could be an AA degree, or it could be something, just something to think about. Maybe that's more important than an EIPA or a BEI, for the provisional level. Then it was Amber. Yeah, it was Amber. Caitlin, yeah, it was Amber next. Amber's looking like, I don't remember, possibly.
Oh, yes, okay. This is Amber. I think there are a bountiful amount of benefits of working with a certified deaf interpreter. I think that's pretty much an agreement that everybody can come to. I would recommend looking at where our CDIs are located. Because we're looking at a lot of like Portland, Salem areas when I see stuff like that. We got people from Redmond and Bend, and Sisters and Ashland and Southern Oregon that I attest to Caitlin and what they're saying as well about that, because as much of a benefit as it is as a hearing interpreter to have that invaluable perspective and expertise towards our field, I can't put a recommendation to put any kinds of requirements towards that due to the resources. So.
I just want to.
This is Nessa. I just want to clarify. I'm not saying only a CDI. I'm saying also a DI, because there are many DIs, good, skilled, but they haven't been able to pass certification yet. So maybe it could be a remote mentorship for the rural people, maybe not as a team. I understand that might not be able to be possible, but maybe a one-on-one, just one-on-one time to, I'm not sure about the pay part, if it'd be volunteer, you know, because there are a lot of DIs that do a lot of volunteer work. So that would count as training hours, you know, it could. You know, just something,
Hypothetical.
just
sorry.
hypothetical. Thank you. This is Darcy. Darcy speaking here. I just wanted to add what Natalie was saying. So today in Oregon, currently in Oregon, there's only 4 CDIs.
Mhm.
And they all live in Salem and one lives in a little more southern. So 3 live in Salem and 1 lives in southern. So right, there's a lot of DIs. And the goal is, you know, for them to be involved in interpreting, but you know, a lot of those DIs mostly actually work in medical currently and do community work and, you know, just general interpreting, those 3 kind of areas. So there's many DIs in, you know, in the Salem area, but southern, maybe, I don't know, there's a few, maybe 2, 3, sorry, and none in Portland. So there's 3 CDIs in Salem and 1 in Southern Oregon. So looking at the big picture now, the demand in the Portland area is pretty high, you know. There's a lot of people wanting to work there and you realize most of them can't work in medical. They can't do the medical work without the certification that in the healthcare interpreter certification. So we have DIs in Portland. So how does that impact? June 8th onward. So that is something that we don't know. And something to think about. I think
I don't think many DIs would be willing to give up time for mentorship. I know for myself, I really I prioritize focusing on getting my skills up so I can become certified, which costs money, for example. I've talked with a few DIs and they said, I don't know, this feels like too much, all of this licensing. Why should we even pursue becoming certified? And that's a big concern right now. So how do we keep those people engaged? There are several DIs who have passed the knowledge exam of the CASLI.
you know, and they have those minimum hours, the 40 hours or whatever, maybe they have more. You know, and they could get the provisional license, but where can they interpret? So they can get that provisional.
Right here. Who's office for this meeting?
Darcy, yeah, conflict of interest. Okay, no, I understand I understand your view, Sammy. So that's kind of like, it's very limited. That's my point. It's very limited places where they can actually practice. So just something to think about. That's all it is, just food for thought. Maybe DIs would be willing and, you know, some would be willing and some wouldn't, you know, some want to really focus on their own personal training. So. Okay, Amanda. This is Amanda. I agree with Lori and her concerns. I mean, it is a tough situation, you know, all these minimum standards and things, it is. And, you know, there's always exceptions to the rule, right? And I'm noticing like with the different licenses, I can't remember which path it was, but I think like tattoo arts, maybe I can't remember exactly one of those professions, but I was looking and to get qualified, they could submit two letters of recommend, or 2 or 3 letters of recommendation. One from none on the board, but like a no family, but you know, they could get letters of recommendation from, I don't remember what it said, but there was different choices, different criteria that they had to meet. So, you know, that's a rule that we could set up as an exception. Because deaf interpreters, absolutely, but we have some interpreters that have been interpreting and they've had let their certification lapse for different reasons. So if they had letters of recommendation, you know, with proof of competency, maybe, you know, medical interpreting like a DI. Now, like maybe they've had so much experience, they have so many hours of working, maybe they could submit some letters of recommendation or something. So something that we could feel like have a third path, maybe a test, the hours of training, and then also maybe letters of recommendation from the community. Who can, sorry, spell that again?
Employers.
So maybe employers. You know, that they've been taking work from, that they could potentially submit those letters from.
So this is Sammy, so I do know the rule that you're talking about because I wrote it. And it's actually, you gotta get licensed in another state. Then if you don't have equivalent, if you're not equivalent license, so say you have a business license, then you can give us letters, taxes, blah, 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 and then you gotta take our test. So you can't just read it narrowly, you gotta read the whole thing. Sorry.
And this is the information I'm gonna put that right.
But that is a good example of a profession that doesn't have a lot of licensing in the nation, that we had to kind of piece things together to make it all work, to ensure that they're not out there, you know, coloring people's skin in, you know, with blood and all that. Make sure that they're qualified to some.
So I, you know, because I, you know, feel like with that conversation, I just was thinking, I guess now has been mentioned, if we would have to have this, you know, specialty license, you know, for our deaf interpreters. So maybe, or we can just like, maybe if it's gonna, if we can decide if we're gonna go that route, then we can, because we can keep going back and forth, you know, including this. So maybe like if we just like, if we're gonna look into a specialty license for the interpreter, then we can then just like, if these are for everybody else. And then we can just like, keep moving forward.
That for everybody else first,
Yeah, so.
because. So this is Sammy, you do keep going back and forth, but you're not landing on anything in any realm. So you can definitely say, we're gonna do a specialty, but I'm still not sure if we need one, because they haven't landed on anything. I'm trying to help you guys.
No, I'm sure. So I moved to say, yes, let's have a specialty deaf interpreter license.
Why though? You know-
And I'm getting there. Because as Darcy was saying, to be able to work in the medical setting, which most of our deaf interpreters do, that's the problem. Right now, we need to figure out a way that deaf interpreters, because we have 4 certified deaf interpreters and 2 who have full-time jobs. And 2 that are doing all of the work for the whole state of Oregon. So how, if like, and they've done the OHCI training. And they've passed the Slippy, so they meet them.
Sammy said you can try, but
I mean, I can try and ask, but I don't think, we let's go back to
Sorry.
page 3.
I didn't mean.
I'm just saying, like, currently, we need to create a pathway for the deaf interpreters to continue to do the bulk of the work that they're doing. And be incentivized by CCOs to pay them and request them. And that means, and they are currently following the law for medical interpreting, that I know. So we have to have our licensure match up with the medical. Tammy's making a face at Mel.
So this is Sammy, so I know that there's some debate out there. The healthcare registry is for a provider who's required to use spoken interpreter, deaf interpreter, whatever, sign language to go out and get some. Doesn't require you as a sign language interpreter or a spoken interpreter to be registered. Requires Tina, if she's a doctor, when she takes OHP, she has to go out and get it. You don't have to be on there, no. You don't have to. It's up to you if you want to provide the service to these specific people. What you do have to do is you gotta hold a board license. Yeah. You're required. So really HCI needs to meet with the boards. Before you can be this person, you gotta be this person. You got to be board licensed before you can do,
Right.
I know it's after the fact, but it is the fact.
This is Mel.
No.
So right now we have trained all of our medical staff who schedule sign language interpreters at hospitals to ask for their OHCI number. So all I'm saying is we need to continue a pathway that allows
You
them,
can't give them that though, just because you want to.
but so they currently are though. So will this change it? That's because I don't know.
Calling on Sammy.
So this is Sammy. So right now, we're in a limited waiver, right? So nobody has to have a license today,
Right.
but on June 8th, you do.
Mhm.
So if you're practicing healthcare interpreting, you don't through the registry and you don't have a board license. Or you won't meet qualifications, or you don't have the license, if you don't hold it. You're breaking the law.
So-
Calling them now.
Medical interpreters will have to have their generalist, their medical license, as well as their Oregon Health Authority registry if they want. But we want them to, and it's in here that they have to. They're kind of woven together, aren't they, under medical right now?
So this is Sammy. So yes, so HLO. The information we received from Mish, who I went to and said, help me help you, because I don't know what to do. They gave me nothing in the bill. So we went with that. But it's your guys' job to decide what that should look like. Maybe you decide it looks like exactly what theirs looks like. So if they want to get that, it's gonna be a real easy transition for them. Great. But you still, to be a medical, you gotta be a provisional or a generalist or a super. Generalist or a supervisor. Remember, generalists only last you 2 years. So at some point, you gotta become supervisor. The one thing I'm not sure about is could you make, and this is a question I haven't asked, but it's on my list, a deaf supervisory and a deaf generalist, and the standards be different.
Yes.
I don't know.
For the record, Nissa, no, not a yes.
I don't know, but that might be able to get you there, but I'm not sure if we can do that.
So I guess this is Mel.
Yes, no.
I was thinking that if we had a deaf specialty license, when we have medical and we have legal and we have generalist, under the list of credentials, we could say holds a deaf license from HLO. As one of the qualifications to be a generalist or be a get the medical. I mean, so we could put in the deaf interpreter license as one of the credentials that gets us the other license. Does that make sense?
So,
Sammy,
yeah, let me clarify. So you want to make a special license? At what level? Can you, I mean, what is different about this license than the other license the one, I don't know what you want to call it, the other
this
one?
is Darcy.
A hearing is sign language interpreter license. What is different? What makes it different?
This is Darcy. So I'm trying to think about this. Hold on, I'm talking to myself. Maybe it's not clear, but I would like to throw something out there first. For OHA. Do they require you to work in medical to put your name on the list of registry? Well, think about deaf interpreters. I mean, there are some CDIs and DIs both already on the OHA list. For example, I am on that list. And I'm a DI, so I've completed the training hours, plus I've had to provide evidence of certain credentials, but know that I'm not certified. No, I'm not a CDI yet. And I'm realizing again, we do need more. Well, there are deaf people moving here from other countries. We have an increased demand. Because there are deaf people moving from outside the country, for example, from Mexico, from Russia. And then the hearing interpreters, they don't know what to do, how to communicate with these deaf individuals from another country. So bringing in a certified deaf interpreter or deaf interpreter, we work with that deaf patient or client to help communication happen. So that's one category of people. The other is deaf people who have experienced language deprivation, where they don't have the foundation for language because of their upbringing. And then we also have the third category, which is deaf people that have physical disabilities, yes, that limit the parameters of their signs. And then the fourth group, thank you. So again, we're talking about people with cerebral palsy or who there's something about their physical way of being, ability to sign that impacts language. And so deaf interpreters help in those situations, even in medical settings. And then we also have another category of people who are deaf blind. What else? Those are just the common that I can think of, but would those be the four categories that we would bring in a DI or a CDI, whichever, in the medical environment or general and in the general community and also for education? Well, I guess general and medical, maybe a little bit of legal, but that's a different story. We'll keep that separate. Oh, you're right. Thank you for adding this. Amber mentioned this, that it's deaf plus is what we call deaf plus other disabilities.
So
Nissa,
we have a paper.
in the paper that I handed out, these are just some ideas about generalist, where I would like to look at number 1, the exception for foreign languages. They have sometimes interpreters need assistance working with this population. Yes, interpreters moving. Or if there is an interpreter who's out of state, we need a pathway for them to get the 40 hours. And because sometimes we need to get interpreters from out of state for these situations. So for one-on-one interpreting, that might help to have these exemptions with the 50 hours. So, but in particular, that's a big one, what you mentioned about foreign language plus sign language plus sign interpreter misuse.
Apprenticeship.
Okay, apprenticeship. Okay, yes, and Caitlin. Well, if you're voicing, you can go.
Just to give Sammy some context onto why there might be a second license for deaf interpreters is because there aren't as many training opportunities or training programs that focus on just going from sign system to sign system. That's why a lot of these scores, they go from English, spoken English, which deaf interpreters cannot hear, to ASL or vice versa.
You can put the or in. You can make it whatever you want.
Right, I'm just letting you know why we have
I'm just trying to
concerns.
figure out what you want me to write. You see what I'm saying?
No, that's totally fair. I'm just letting you know, this is why we're having.
I understand why, but I don't understand why you would need a special license when you can just write or and then put how the deaf interpreter would meet the qualification. Because you could, or they could do the IPA, the TV, whatever it is, the 40 hours, or whatever the other things are. Does that make sense? I'm trying to get us somewhere here. And we're not getting anywhere, guys, and we have to be done by 3 because the interpreters need to be done.
Is it related?
So the reason is because 40 hours of interpreting experience or workshops or trainings for a hearing interpreter looks different than it does for a deaf interpreter. Generally,
So put or and then write what is good for them.
but if you were saying that it's an or, that means that hearing person can say, oh yeah, I did 40 hours of training. I'm good,
Yeah,
I'm fine."
yeah.
But we're saying that that is not equivalent.
So you
Because-
want different equivalencies
Correct.
of, so they don't meet the same equivalency. The same standard of interpreter, a different standard of interpreter.
So if me, in my first
Sorry.
year of an interpreter program, decided, oh yeah, I can qualify for the provisional license because I've taken 3 weeks of classes. It's not the same as a deaf interpreter who's focusing on mentorship and specialized workshops. Oh, it's not the same.
Interpreters are gonna switch. And Caitlin? And is it Amanda, Amber, Natalie? Who's first, Amber or Natalie?
This is Amber. The job of the deaf interpreter is just very different in comparison to the family.
I got it. I just need to know what
They're
the
just different
requirements.
roles, they're different. And their descriptions, they're different entirely, so putting it or isn't gonna work, but they're just different jobs. They are both interpreters, absolutely,
I got it.
they're just different.
You don't want the hearing interpreter to meet that requirement as well.
Correct.
That's all I need to know. They will meet a different standard in the day.
Exactly, yes.
That's all. It is a no.
To paraphrase, yes.
Well, that's what I asked them.
Then, okay, yes, and then
So I just need to know what the requirements are for the.
Amanda's next.
Amanda, then we'll go to the stuff. Amanda, this is Amanda. I really feel like we've been doing a lot of work in training hearing interpreters through a specific pathway. We have cultural expectations, we have lots of things that they have to do to become an interpreter. So, could someone, do the 40 hours of interpreting, 40 hours of training and then just get their license? Yes, they could. Is that realistic? No. So we need to set up some sort of expectation, taking classes, going through a program, getting a degree, something that says that they are qualified. So I'm just worried that that's not gonna happen. If that does happen, we need to figure out a system that says, you know what, no, that is not acceptable. And what, you can like do this like 5 times, you can re-up it 5 times? So we need to sort of weed out that situation. If we want a minimum standard, we need to set up a minimum standard. And that means like, that means some people are gonna be, getting provisional licenses, then maybe should decide what they working. But we have to have a place to start. So we have to have a way to screen out some of those other, situations. So. I'm sorry, Amanda. We have to, accept some of that risk, that some of the workers or some of the interpreters are not going to be qualified for a short term, for some time. And that there's going to be a small group of people that are going to fall under that category. And I don't like it. I don't. But at the same time, we can't just magically make everybody a perfect interpreter. So they have to start somewhere. So we need to give them an opportunity to start working. And so I feel like we really need to start somewhere. So maybe that is, keeping that bar very low. And then modify it as we go. And we can adjust those things over the years, but what we have to weed out some of the things that aren't gonna make the process work. So hearing interpreters who do have a goal of becoming interpreters through an academic situation. Statistically, they are, that's what we're doing now. So I can't even imagine just doing some training on their own and then start taking interpreting jobs. So people who do that, they're gonna get weeded out. That's how it sense.
This is Lori. I'm wondering, could we, under the heading of provisional license, have criteria for hearing provisional license applicants and deaf provisional license applicants? So we still have the one license, we're just establishing different criteria.
Maybe.
It's a I don't know. That's a question, the same question, basically.
Amanda? This is Amanda. If we do that, what does it mean for deaf interpreters? Like, what does it mean to be deaf? Like hearing loss, somebody who's signing, somebody whose parents are deaf? What does it mean to be deaf? Below age 2 or what? What does it mean to be deaf?
This is Lori. What does it mean now for deaf interpreters
Amanda
for
says that
CDIs?
we don't have, Amanda? Darcy, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I just was reading the Cosley, and they require a hearing test and a certain level of hearing loss to be a deaf interpreter. Laura says, well, there you go. Who's next?
So this is Tina. I just have a quick question. Out of everybody here, how many of you qualify under A, B, C, or D?
What page?
Under page 5. Under 5, A through D.
Wait a sec.
Amanda was just talking with Natalie. Natalie says that she qualifies under the hours, but not the training. And Amanda says that's a really good point.
I'm not an ASL interpreter. I have 60 hours of training for spoken language and speaking for Spanish, but not for.
Oh,
Do you have the hours of training? Amanda's asking, right? So most everybody in the room has their hands up.
What did you say again, Natalie? Or Amanda, or?
Oh, this is Amanda. Mel was just saying that,
The two of us don't qualify under a provisional license. But I did take the EIPA, so, and most of us have over that 40 hours of training, so we would. So we would qualify. And you, right, too, right, Darcy, you would as well? Yeah, I would. Because I have the Cosley knowledge test and the minimum hours. Correct, I have those two. And then Amanda, sorry, my eyes don't go that fast. Yeah, okay, good.
sorry, I'm not doing a very well job managing things here. Yes, Amanda, go ahead. And then Sammy. This is Amanda. Well, the problem is Natalie and I were just talking. She would also qualify under this. She has 40 hours of training, but not an ASL. So that's interesting, right? So she would technically qualify. So now how do we weed out the people or block the people who, like Natalie, who we don't necessarily have the provisional interpreting license?
Okay, so let's read it.
Yeah.
Sandy. It says, education and training in sign language interpretation. Not just education and training, because then I could do it, right? Oh, no, that's right. So we have parameters, then you guys can decide what those parameters are. But the
Okay,
first
yes.
part of the conversation was, Darcy said, 60 hours seems like a lot. She's talked to some community members, she thinks 40 is better. So are there other things
2 thumbs up in the room.
that you would want for the, is that the bar for the deaf provisional interpreter, or is that the bar for the hearing interpreter? Like, what bar were you talking about, Percy? How's that?
This is Darcy. In the past, gosh, here just a couple years ago, they required the 60 hours of training for DIs who were not certified yet, but they had 6 hours of training under, what was it? RID had a requirement, but they got rid of that. So now there are no requirements currently. So I took the 60 hours myself before that time. So now, so now DIs who want the training have nowhere to get it. They're sort of floating out there. You know, as opportunities come up, but there's nothing formal established. There's nothing ongoing. There's nothing dependable. It's all sort of, most of it's out of state or online. So now you have to fly and that costs money. So it just seems like 40 hours. I mean, it's still something. It's still, some program offers 60 hours, but at least 40 would be a minimum, good place to start. And we could sort of oversee that. And hearing interpreters would need more, because there's more opportunities. I mean, they could get 60 hours easily, where the same opportunities aren't there for the deaf interpreters who are wanting training. So that's just kind of where I'm thinking at the moment. So I think we could do both, like a 60 hours and a 40 hours for the position. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, what if you, Tina was just whispering to me, what if you had or experience? And you make the experience more lengthy. I think it was Lori that gave
Thank you, I heard.
some mathematical in your comments. I'm trying to put my hands on it right now. Was it you? who Gave me the chart, the comments of the original questions, you. Didn't you put some kind of, exit schooling equals experience? Oh, here it is. Could you do something like that?
We all have experience. That's Tina. You all have experience, correct?
Yeah. This is Sammy, so. And then this right. Sammy, I did what you. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, my God.
No, I don't know.
Go on.
This is, it might have been the license renewal. And I'm saying the teachers, their licenses are active for 3 or more years.
No, this wasn't, it's a calculation where the RID said X number of years of experience equals X number of a degree. Was it you? Somebody did it, right? Do you want to explain it? Maybe that would be something you could do.
This is Caitlin, I did.
Caitlin?
I just sent along RID's alternate pathway requirements. Because they count years of experience in equivalent to college credits. And so I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that's what they say.
I'm not crazy. So that we could think about something like that. You know,
Darcy. Caitlin, yeah, you're right. I mean, that could apply to the DI and a hearing interpreter. I mean, we could pick that kind of pathway. So just to make sure that there is sort of a cutoff point. Because right now, DIs are limited. Just do something before June 8th. So it's something we need to check on.
finally,
I'm gonna speak just because this is more directed towards Sammy and Tina. Do we need to try to convince you of our work? Because I feel like we're wasting a lot of time educating and convincing you why we should do this instead of actually just making decisions.
I think I've asked you 4 or 5 times, what do you want the license to look like?
Okay, so can we just
Help me
like,
help you.
Yeah.
I actually need a break.
10 minutes? Carrie says 10 minutes. Carrie says 10 minutes.
What would you guys like to start?
Amber.
Okay, hi, this is Amber speaking. So I think we need to be a little bit more macro and answer the question. So I would like to propose that we adopt the first couple qualifications of spitballing here, but for the application requirements for an SLI generalist license for using the first four.
We're going back to generalist now.
No, I am not. Hold on, let me finish. From item 1 to 4 for that, if we can just use those 4 guidelines currently to start a draft for the deaf interpreter specialty license. I think we need to do a little bit more research on what that entails as to what the requirements should be for a deaf interpreter license. But I think that we can just start with that as a foundation to build off of, and then.
Darcy's asking, I'm sorry, which floor are you on, which page number?
Yes, thank you. Page 7. Oh, sorry. The 816, chapter 816 division.
Oh, I didn't pass that document out. I didn't even bring it. This thing? Yeah, it was not relevant to me. Maybe changes to the original stuff. I mean,
Well, this is Amber, I'm just referencing this so that we can add it to the draft version of it, so I can just read it off because I have it in front of me, if that's all right.
you understand what I'm typing?
Yeah.
This is Sammy, so you want to take. So we're working on a generalist deaf interpreter license. We're out of provisional. And have you landed on anything for provision? In any way. Deaf or hearing residents.
Amanda. This is Amanda. I just want to finish something. So can we finish provisional before we jump ahead to something else? So what I have heard so far in regards to the provisional license is the causally written or the 40 hours, 40 is what I'm sending out there to everybody, 40 hours. And we have some concerns about the language proficiency part, but we haven't really decided anything. So those are the 2 that I think, right, guys? I'm sending a little pulse out, that what is happening. So for this is for the provisional license. That's all I'm saying. Well, and then me, okay.
Lori was asking for the hearing or deaf.
Oh, thank you. So, okay, Lori, did you have to add? Do you mind repeating what you said, Lori?
I was asking if she was talking about the deaf license or the hearing license, because I'm still thinking that 60 for hearing license is okay, and maybe 40 for the deaf, but that's my opinion.
Great. Lots of head nods. Nessa? this is not my field. So just putting that disclaimer out there. But could we add something that says if you pass something with a minimum, some sort of proficiency test? Like looking at the ASL interview, something, hold on. The ASL testing, like, because we have the two groups, right? So can we? So it will cause backlog. But I feel like we need some sort of filter for, some sort of screening for proficiency, ASL proficiency. I'm not talking about deaf interpreter stuff, I'm talking about just right here. So provisional for a hearing interpreter, I feel like there needs to be some sort of testing of their ASL proficiency. You know, plus a certain amount of hours of training. I think that's great, but when you show up and you pull open your book and you say, look down and say, oh, this is the sign for house. I mean, I feel like there should be some sort of requirement about that. That's just me.
Okay, so does this mean that we're going to add back in the potential for EIPA, TBEI? Or having a degree, like someone mentioned, having proof that you've taken courses and passed, whatever that looks like. So does that mean we want to add those back in?
Nessa? I don't know if I am using the right vocabulary or what. But the signing assessment, is that the ASLPI or the, I don't know the acronym, are those the same thing? Just working, just speaking from my Bridges work experience, I know like OSD teachers have a requirement to have a minimum of a signing proficiency. So I don't know what that test is or what it's called. I don't know that, but I feel like it should be parallel to something. We should have some sort of proficiency, ASL proficiency, you know, because there's a lot of interpreters that are not super fluent, you know, especially for K through 12. So, but like, we just need some sort of benchmark to pass, that they have some sort of ASL proficiency, and then later they can improve their skill, obviously. You know, because that takes practice. But I don't know what that evaluation tests are called. I don't want to make like any sort of limiting thing where you have to have an EIPA, you have to have all these things, like that's not, it seems ridiculous, but some sort of filtering test, something, I don't know what it is. You guys know the word, but that idea. Go ahead now. So, yeah. So your comment, so if I graduated, like, if, you know, American mainstream high school diploma or another degree, that shows that I have some sort of level of English proficiency, right? Through our American school system. That satisfies like an English understanding proficiency. But then what is that for ASL? Do we add back the ASLPI, SLPI, whatever the acronyms they are, the one that validate and other ones, right? So, or do you feel there is enough protection for the deaf community for the skills, sign language skills and proficiency without those tests? Because, you know, if they go through school, that's great, but then for where's the assessment for their sign language skills? Their English they have because they have had school. And this is nothing saying, yes, exactly that is what I'm talking about. I know you have, this is Mel, I know that you have to think a lot because it's hard to represent everybody. And this is Darcy, I am thinking, I wish there were more deaf here, more deaf people. Amanda, go ahead. So just want to put this out there. If education counts towards English proficiency, so should there be a certain amount of courses or a number of years through like the deaf school, like for like a deaf interpreter or something like that would be equivalent. So So I would argue that it needs to be a higher than a high school proficiency level, like here in Oregon, you don't even have to pass any sort of like reading or writing test or any kind. So high school proficiency is maybe a little not enough, but maybe some sort of hours of English proficiency that's a little higher than that. And then, sorry, I did not, and then some sort of what you finger spelled, some sort of calculation for alternative pathway of experience equals hours, training hours, that kind of thing. Kate, this is starting Caitlin.
I think, and I know that this is a conversation with medical interpreting right now. It feels a little weird to have to pass an ASLPI in addition to already passing an interpreting performance. Because that should already prove that you are fluent enough in the language. But having it as courses or ASLPI? Maybe. Because
Some head nods happening.
not every interpreter is formally educated. And an ASLPI would be a way to still show, yes, I am fluent in the language.
Go ahead, Nessa. Thank you for that. So thank you for the nice jargon there. I appreciate that. That would allow like people like me, a CODA, to access, to be able to get in, because I don't have the years of school or education. You know, you can count homeschool where I signed, I guess, you know, but that doesn't count. So I think there should be an addition. So if you have something from a professional institute, great, that's your proof. But if you don't have that, there needs to be another pathway. There needs to be something else, something to filter, right? No? I think that, ooh, this is Melanie, I want to add. Spoken language interpreters, when they apply for certification here, they need some kind of evidence from their home country, so we can use that as a foundation for what we do here. This is Darcy speaking. I'm just trying to envision what you want. Nessa, all these comments that were just said. So I'm just thinking about it. So if we added like the SLPI or the ASLPI plus one of these other things, would that work? Would that satisfy it? Because right now it seems we kind of agreed on the CASLI, the knowledge test. And what was the other thing we decided on? Oh yeah, the 40 hours of training. So if we added a third line item, the ASLPI or the SLPI. So if we had those three, and then Mel is saying or. So because the first two, the knowledge exam doesn't really, it doesn't measure any sort of ASL proficiency. And then the training, about 40 hours of training, it could be, right, in anything, it's very vague right now, you know, I mean, that's kind of the point of it. And then if we do the SLPI, ASLPI, we could set a minimum of, gosh, I don't know, maybe 3.0 or something, or 2.0 or something. 2.5, sorry, 2.5 or 3.0 interpreter correction. So I don't, I'm just making that number up for the ASL proficiency screening. So I feel like, you know, and maybe it also would require them to have one of the others above. So, and then say your last sentence one more time. And then for the other licenses, they, you know, we would kind of weed out specifically what they need so that they can, you know, go up to the next level. And then maybe we could delete some of those other requirements. I don't know who was first.
This is Nissa. I'm gonna break it down for my hearing brain. I understand, you know, what you're saying, but then. So there are two tracks, let's say. If you just happen to have the RDC or whatever it is, something to prove that you are
we have assigning proficiency. But then you, let's see, let's say you take an ASLPI or an SLPI, and then you also have the CASLI or X number of hours. Is that what you're saying? Yes, that's what I didn't.
This is Darcy. I understood what you just said, but I didn't understand that first explanation that you gave.
The second track, this is Nissa saying, the second track should, for college students, perhaps some kind of performance exam or test. Maybe the RID, maybe they don't feel comfortable going for the generalist. Maybe there's some kind of exception if they have X amount of. If they pass a certain number of criteria, then that would satisfy that. And then if not, you can do the first track.
Go ahead, Amanda, and then Lori. So this is Amanda. Okay, so first I want to clarify a question for you, Darcy. Clarifying question. So you said have the 3, or these are all ors, is that right? The COSLI or the hours or the ASLPI. Is that what you're saying? She said, Darcy's saying, hold on, let me think. So currently, Sam, hold on, I'm gonna say this, trying to interrupt us.
This
Go
is
ahead,
saying, is this hearing or deaf or both? Because several
I-
people have went to the, I'm not sure where we're at. I'm trying to get notes here.
Clarifying, I was speaking generally for hearing.
Okay, and the interpreters need to switch up these. Okay, I'll wait. Amanda's saying I'll wait for the interpreters. Great. So this is Amanda speaking again, and please, it would help for us to know in order to make the decision. I'm only talking, I need you to know that I'm not delineating between hearing or deaf interpreters. I'm speaking to all interpreters. If we add the SLPI, because think about hearing interpreters, they're not automatically qualified in English. That needs to be said. And then if we're interpreting in 2 languages, we need to have proficiency in both languages. So how do we prove that? Is there, I mean, there are a variety of options for that. But is it the SLPI? Is it the 40 hours plus the CASLI? Oh, I'm sorry, Amanda. Allie's lost a little bit. Excuse me.
We're getting tired.
Amanda says, no problem. Okay, before lunch, we were talking about the 40 hours training. We felt like that wasn't sufficient. So now we're saying that ASLPI 3.0 would be good enough, but wait a minute. Whoa, that feels disconcerting to me. We're talking about this or, and this and. This is things, you know.
I'm wondering if somebody can tell us how much these tests are costing, because it's sounding more and more expensive the more we talk.
Any heads nodding? And this is Nissa saying, okay, I'm gonna voice for myself.
So what I was trying to explain is you're gonna have the ASLPI, however you say it, that. And then with the understanding, you're gonna either have your 40 hours or the CASLI, thank you, exam, either one. But the requirement is to prove your proficiency in sign, because that's the biggest thing. We're serving the deaf community. I want to make sure I'm relaying my words right. Yes, there should be some kind of English thing, but we are in a world of native English speakers to the most part. How are we going to test that to prove that? So that's where there's a lot of, but that's, I believe what was Darcy saying is ASLPI and then either or, so it doesn't add extra more stuff. It's just either or for hours of training, for knowledge. Yeah, that makes sense.
Caitlin?
So you're suggesting that every interpreter in Oregon needs to go and get their ASLP test right now? Before we-
No. This is NISA.
That's what I heard.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, this is NISA. No, it's just for provisional, if you want to, like, I really want to set up an established thing for grandfathering people in, and then we can remove the ones that we don't need in the field. That, we can talk about that later, but this is like new interpreters coming into the workforce, provisional. Okay, how are we gonna prove that their sign language is good? They're not out of a book. That's what I'm talking about.
Caitlin?
So new graduates need to pay to take the ASLPI in order to prove that they're proficient in ASL. That they just spent thousands of dollars training.
Nissa?
So, Nissa here, to clarify, I'm not talking about you going to college. I'm talking about, if you go to college, obviously you've got performance stuff. That should be its own track. You've already passed the exemptions. You're good. You've qualified. Because I personally don't think new graduates should have to pay extra. You've already paid X amount going to school. Okay, here's your license, go practice, have fun, apprenticeship kind of thing. I'm talking more about the ones who have the knowledge coming off of high school and stuff. So that's what I'm just clarifying. I don't want you guys to pay more. It's just alternative,
Thank you.
but basics.
Natalie?
Yeah, so just kind of going, based on that, so can we do like, if you are not, if you have not graduated or if you've graduated from a program, you do this, or, is that or the SLPI, and then, that will be a requirement, either you go to school or you do this testing and then one or the other.
Sorry, let's go with Christie. This is Christie, but currently there is no requirement in the provisional license for going to the individual programs.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's either that.
Is it regarding Chrissy, is it related?
Yeah, so what I was just saying, maybe like if we have it, then either they go to a program or they prove their proficiency doing the SL. So either one or,
This is Christie, so you're saying add that component, which we don't currently.
And
Mel.
Okay, Mel first. Could we say that, okay, graduate from an interpreter training program or registered in a mentoring program, like doing an internship? Or someone that's in program, can you? Hey, Mel, can you help us out here? Sorry.
Yes. Or you can say, if we put in the provisional license, if you're enrolled in an interpreter training program or graduating from. Because then that would cover the student piece of people who are enrolled in the program.
Melissa?
To add what you're saying, I think that would also prevent misunderstanding because students who are doing an apprenticeship would automatically be covered underneath that license. And so there would be no like, oh, well, you can't do this. It's like, yeah, I have something to protect me and hold me accountable. So here.
Okay, Amanda. So this is Amanda. What I think that we're talking about is that we set up 4 criteria for the provisional license. How to demonstrate it can vary, but there are 4 skills. There's the English proficiency skill. There's an ASL proficiency skill. We'll have a minimum for that as well. And then the last 2 would be or. The ASLPI, or excuse me, the CASLI or the 40 hours. So that would be the criteria, and then the evidence can look different depending on your situation. For English skills, it could be a degree, or it could, for ASL proficiency, it could be a degree or mentorship, or it could be the SLPI or the ASLPI. So there's that. Then for the final two, we could demonstrate through obviously taking the CASLI exam, but for the 40 hours of training, it could be met by attending a program or taking various workshops. So the evidence, there would be a large list.
Kesley.
Hours. Got the 4 criteria, and then you just have to find proof of those criteria.
I don't have the 4 criteria. A lot of acronyms don't have the criteria. So maybe some.
I'm gonna switch to English.
Again,
Okay. So the 4 criteria, please correct me. English proficiency, and we need to define what level that is. I predict your question. English proficiency.
Yeah, go
This
ahead.
is Sammy. Is that spoken English? When you say English proficiency, is that verbal?
No,
What is it?
right, we have to define that.
How is it different from ASL?
English?
I don't know what you mean.
Right, okay,
I'm
so,
speaking English.
right,
Is
so
there
there,
an English sign language?
no. I'm talking about actual English that could be spoken, could be written, could be, but I'm saying the English language proficiency in English language. So see
Not
how our
in sign,
interpreters,
either in
correct,
verbal or handwritten.
correct, correct, yeah. So our interpreters work into English as well, right? So the English proficiency.
I don't know, do they?
Have you not heard them today?
I've heard them.
Yeah, that's them. They do that.
But do they all?
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, so I think all the ASL interpreters.
But
Except,
but no.
except for deaf interpreters.
Not all.
I,
Let's be clear what you mean, because I don't know what you mean.
Amanda?
so this is Amanda. Deaf interpreters do work into and out of English. They may or may not work into and out of spoken English, but some of them do. They also work with paper that is English. So deaf interpreters work with English just as much as they work with ASL. So whatever that English proficiency test is going to have to encompass all of that. But there is not an interpreter that doesn't use 2 languages. That's just not a thing. There is always 2 languages at play. So an English proficiency test, which we are going to have to define. Not test, I'm so sorry. English proficiency is a criteria. We will define what that level is in a second. I'm really ambitious about this. ASL proficiency is the second criteria.
And those are, Nissa here, they're both requirements.
She's catching.
Oh, she's getting caught up. The interpreters are right.
And then maybe that 3rd category would be like knowledge and ethics or something to that effect. That could be demonstrated through a national test, a knowledge test, or 40 hours of training. That we also use. Right there.
That's kind of what we're talking about. Let's make sure I'm on the right track here. That's the minute of speaking. Steve, did you have your hand up? No? Okay.
Okay, so.
Mel?
No, I got. English proficiency, need to define what makes the person proficient in English. I got ASL proficiency. Need to define that too.
We will.
Okay. And then I got ethics.
Knowledge and ethics, which can be.
Knowledge in ethics.
Knowledge and ethics.
Knowledge in what? Knowledge of the.
And knowledge, of interpreting. Yeah, of
Sign
interpreting.
language interpretation. So 3.
They don't spell that.
Not
Yes.
actually.
The Casley knowledge. How do you say Casley, how do we pronounce that?
I say Casley.
Casley, okay. Mel doesn't say Casley.
What do you say?
So knowledge. and
Casley or Casley? This is for the
Which is
interpreters,
Casley.
Casley or Casley
Casley or
is
the
the
40
same
hours.
thing.
So let me make sure I'm understanding. The knowledge and ethics equals CASL.
Correct.
we'll wait for Sammy to get caught up.
And then Mel and then.
Okay, let me repeat this. This is Sammy. So 4 pathways. One is English proficiency, that word. With needing to define that. One is ASL proficiency, needing to define that. The third is passing the casting exam. And then the next one is 40 hours in sign language education. And that's,
So clarification. The language, the first two are not ors. So it's English and ASL and knowledge and ethics, which can be demonstrated in different ways. So it's 3 things.
okay, hold on. You just said it was Casley. There's more than Casley then?
CASLI or 40 hours of training.
No, when you said knowledge and ethics, and I asked you, does that mean Casley?
It
You said
includes that.
yes, but then you said there was other methods to determine knowledge.
Right, so the 40 hours of training would be another way to demonstrate knowledge
Got
in sign
So
language.
that
ethics.
one's over.
Correct. Yeah.
And Mel?
And this is Mel, because Amanda speaks for both sign language and like deaf interpreters as well as hearing interpreters. I want to just say that the testing of English on deaf interpreters, what that measurement might look like will be different if we include it or not. So that's, again, what we've tabled as deaf interpreter license, specialty license is over there.
Amanda's shaking her head, yes.
Well, Amanda said that, so what I think I hear you saying, Amanda was talking for both hearing and deaf, but you're saying there could be different ones. One would be this way for deaf and one would be this way for hearing. So you may have 4 pathways within the pathway, different pathways. Am I hearing that accurately?
I think so.
And
Amanda? Or Natalie?
I just wanted to clarify about in and for. And then maybe it's something else also I wanted to mention is that for spoken languages, for anybody that wants to register for a program, for interpreting program, they have to do a proficiency test. If they are not able to show their proficiency, whether they have a diploma or transcripts, from their home country and then one from here. If they do not have those, then they do have to have a proficiency test in both languages, the one that they're gonna be interpreting into and English. You have to show the proficiency, and that is even before they sign up for the interpreting program. Just wanted to share that.
Sorry, the interpreter was off screen, so I had to come back. You were saying that if you don't have the paper degree, then you have to do a proficiency exam in both of the languages.
Yes, and that's for spoken languages, so just
Got it, thank you.
that might be something.
So you mean that you do that before you take the
They
test?
haven't mentioned degree.
Yes, so before you go into like for instance, before you sign up for the 60-hour training or before you even qualify to be in the OHA registry, you have to show that you are proficient in all languages.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But not only the prior showing that you're proficient.
Yes,
And
no,
not
family.
graduating from, it's a high school diploma. Yeah, it's. Yeah, so that's what I mean, so if we don't have something that shows like, finish college or something to show the proficiency, then they have to do something else to show that they do have proficiency. That English.
Sammy?
Mrs. Sammy, so is somewhere built in these for a degree that I'm not hearing?
This is Christie, I'm wondering, it is a situation which is, if you have not graduated or received a diploma from then. you have to- Or the, yes, or the, what did we decide? Gosh. Where are we at?
We haven't decided that. We actually took it out and then now we're.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna speak English for the typing purposes, and if it gets confusing, I'm happy to get back into it. What I think we're saying is, these are the criteria. How you would demonstrate them might vary, right? So you could demonstrate English proficiency with a degree, a diploma, a whatever in America,
Exactly.
like,
I
right?
don't
Yes, yeah, I think that's what we're kind of defining, right? And then you could demonstrate ASL proficiency through graduation from an ASL studies program or from something to that effect. And if you don't, then you could take the ASLPI or the SLPI. That's a whole different discussion about validity and reliability, but it's also opportunities are limited. So that's a different conversation. And then these two are actually defined in terms of, it's either the CASLI rating or it's 40 hours of training in knowledge of interpreting history, ethics, those kinds of things. So those two are more defined in terms of evidence, but these are, the evidence could differ. And again, it would, hearing or deaf interpreters could demonstrate in accurate.
And tell us what we're looking for.
This is
So,
Christie.
Tammy? So just tell us what we're looking for.
And so our next step would be that we would define what the evidence is.
Nissa?
So how we're writing it out on example, the draft. We have number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and those are exactly what you tailored out. Beautiful. We need to do those little subgroups, A, B, and C for the 2, if that makes sense for Sammy. Right?
Sure.
Okay.
Amanda?
I'm gonna speak again because I'm gonna. So Sammy, I feel like we are telling you things and you don't know that we're telling you things, or we're not telling you the things that you need to know in the way that you need to know them for the documentation. So I feel like I need to know more specifically what it is you need to know so we can be helpful. Because I feel like last time and this time, we have been telling you things and then you told us we didn't do anything. So I feel like,
No, actually not. Last time you.
I feel like
Now we're
we
actually
need to
going
have some
back.
conversations. Right.
So, I mean, I gave you the documentation and you guys can add anything that you want to. And the last time you did, you wrote a whole rule on provisional. And this time you're putting things back. And you're saying that you want to do these things and I don't know what those things mean. So I need to know, and now I know.
Okay.
And now I mean, this is great and we'll put it on an application, but we don't know what it even means, so. And so Tina won't have someone, the licensee won't know, or Michael won't know what to expect from the applicant.
Okay, so yes, Sammy is right. We need to be very clear on the application. If you're saying English proficiency, what type of certificate will that come in on? Same with ASL proficiency. We have to know exactly what that is going to look like and be very clear in our rules. So it's easy to process here in the licensing world. Because we can't just have something come in saying, oh yeah, they did this. It has to be some type of a certificate, something that's very clear on how they're gonna be processed.
Amanda?
I appreciate that. It's helpful. Because I think I was talking about buckets and then I was gonna get to the specifics, right? Because I know you need the specifics.
But the buckets have to count because we have to agree about what the buckets are before we put something in the buckets. And as you can see, we are not an entirely agreeable group, although we're very friendly, but it's not entirely agreeable. So I think the buckets for me at least are helpful to know. These are the buckets. Okay, now we can either do homework or we can come up with it today or whatever to say like, okay, these are the things in that bucket. This is in that bucket, this is in that bucket, and this is in that bucket. And we will definitely give you specific things. Yeah, that's not.
Other thing would be, is there specific companies that give these tests?
Amanda's shaking her head, yes. This is Darcy speaking. Mel and I were talking a little bit earlier about the English test. And that's gonna that's gonna look very different for deaf interpreters who, that's why that license is gonna look different. So we need to develop that criteria as well. And I'm happy to sort of take over that piece and do some research on that. And write down some rough draft criteria and expectations for the deaf interpreter English proficiency piece of the deaf. So just, excuse me, just for the deaf license. So, so we've got the 4 criteria, we've got this or this, and we've got all these other things that need to be delineated out. We need to get all of those for the hearing and deaf. So I don't know if we want to like vote or like, I don't know, vote or not, but are we supposed to? This is Amanda. Yeah, I'm kind of thinking along the same lines. So if we have a written test, like the COSLI, like for English, what if the COSLI, they pass the COSLI? Great, no problem. So is that it for the provisional? And then 50% English and 50% ASL for that test? Would that be enough to prove skill level and proficiency? Then if you don't have that, then you've got A, B, and C. The 40 hours of training. Because the COSLI itself is for hearing and deaf interpreters, both, 50, because it's 50-50. So I don't know, that's just a thought. A little more simplistic, maybe. Darcy says. So how many of you are familiar with the COSLI? We've got 1 hand up, an ish, 2 hands up. Amanda saying it's pretty new. So we've got a handful of people in the room. So I'm just curious what your perspectives are in regards to that. I have taken the COSLI, the new test, and it is 50% each language. So yeah, I was just wondering what other people's thoughts are. Amanda's like, yeah. Amber? I've heard that the COSLI also includes an ethical piece now, so do we want to do something with that? Also, we could add the COSLI ethical piece into that last little category, because there does need to be ethical to satisfy that ethical piece as well. Would that satisfy it? It could be, if you take the COSLI, the knowledge test, then that could satisfy the English proficiency, the ASL proficiency, and the ethics, Amanda says. Right. So it could satisfy all of them, right? The interpreter lots of head nodding. Caitlin? Caitlin says, my concern is that the COSLI is not evaluative of sign. It is for receptive sign, but not signing skills for production. And Darcy says, yep, you're right. And Amber says, good point. Amanda? But it also doesn't do spoken English well either.
There's also not evaluating your spoken English either.
In my opinion, it's no good. Natalie, or excuse me, Amber, sorry, Amber. If you take the Cosley exam, are you required to have a bachelor's degree for that? No, you are not. Lots of head nods, no. No, you're not. Amanda says, I'm afraid to give them that. And Amber just says, I just want to make sure. I didn't miss it. Darcy says, okay. Amanda? Or? But there's two people. Who's gonna go first? Christy or Amanda? Amanda. So I think we have Amanda, and we have some homework. We need to identify some of the evidence that we want to use to match the criteria that we've established. The English proficiency, where are we gonna get that? The deaf piece, the hearing piece. So those two tracks. I also think the next time we need to bring evidence with us so that Sammy can get it into the documentation.
And this is the interpreter, sorry, type of the switch.
This is Christy. We have ruminated on the provisionary license for quite a bit of time today. I'm just calling our attention to it's 2:10. And we still have to have public comments, is that correct? And we still need to determine if we're meeting next week and another future meeting date. So I wonder if it's now a good time to take a break from the conversation on the provisional. We know that we need to do homework, but then maybe we want to address going forward.
There are lots of head nodding in the audience.
Assign, Sammy, assign homework.
Go ahead, Christy.
I think that Darcy has volunteered to do some homework in regards to the deaf specialty license.
For the deaf license, right? I mean, is there a couple other people that would like to join me? Amanda says, I'm willing to. Amanda, okay, wait, Amanda saying, wait, hold on. I just want to make sure that I'm clear. This is Amanda. For the English part of the provisional or for the deaf license, are you talking about a separate deaf license? We're saying a deaf separate license. This is Darcy, a separate license, correct? A deaf separate license.
Well,
Sammy?
This is Sammy. And
So this is for, yeah, temporary.
just a specialty, not a provisional, just a specialty license.
So yes, with the idea of possibly having a specialty license with other subcategories of it. Maybe we can look at just to have a professional license only, maybe get rid of the provisional one. Like kind of depending on what we decide as a provisional license currently, we can decide if the deaf license could be included in that provisional, or if it would have to be totally separate for a specialty deaf license. Ina, did you say that? Oh, Christy?
So I think we're trying to identify the other homework areas, and I think what I know is that we want to have the evidence that would be shown for English mastery and ASL proficiency. So we could have two homework areas. And then I think the third homework area is really spelling out those 40 hours and what that must involve. Is that correct?
Go ahead, Amanda. This is Amanda. I'm happy to do any of those. I don't mind, looking at, for examples of each. I mean, it's a good starting place. I feel I'm flexible. What do people want to do? Because I'm really flexible to do
any of the four? This is Lori. I'm happy to look into the English proficiency stuff. That's probably the easiest area for me.
Christy, I'll be your partner on that, because I feel like I'm really do qualify with the other areas.
Okay, so you two are okay, you guys are good. Nessa?
I volunteer for ASL performance because that's a big one for the quota.
No?
Can I work on supervision? Sorry, snooze you lose.
Amanda? Out of order, Mel, out of order. We are talking about homework for provisional right now, provisional.
Just saying, it was in the
If you
packet.
add supervision,
I feel like we need to make Sammy.
I'm in. Okay,
Christy, Mel, I'm guessing that based on the pace in which we worked today, that there will be plenty of work opportunities.
Amber says, never mind. Christy, did you have something else? Amber, you said nothing. Yes, okay. This is Amanda. I'm happy to work on the 40 hours of training. Delineate what that would look like, what evidence would look like for that. Darcy, give me something, Mel.
So Sammy, we have to work independently of each other. So if I feel inclined to look at something, shall I? Okay.
Amanda says it's up to you.
Mhm.
Tammy?
Could somebody volunteer for ASL?
I did. Sorry, Nessa.
This is Christy. I may have to withdraw my homework contribution if we're planning to meet next week. If we're going to cancel next week and in the future date, happy to resume that.
It can also help with ASL proficiency.
Natalie?
Just a question for Amanda. So are you gonna do like the 40 hours of training, but then also, oh, that's gonna be documented in the application?
You want to put it?
Yeah, I think I
This is Darcy. I have a question for you, Natalie. You focus on spoken language, right? You generally work with like spoken language, like Spanish. And do you feel like you have enough information about other languages? Like people with smaller communities who maybe speak a different dialect, you know, like Chinese, Native American, you know, all those more, those different dialects, and, you know, do those all have minimum information that they are required to have? Because isn't it hard to find that information to figure out like what other languages are, like something that's not as common, but these other smaller dialects? And I don't know, that might be that might be applying to our deaf minimums. Maybe I could work with you. Have you share that stuff with me so I can see how that could apply to our deaf community?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course, yeah. You know, as I mentioned, I work as, I am a qualified Spanish interpreter, but then I'm the manager for the language access team at St. Anne Hospital. So we are always providing services to patients that speak languages of lesser diffusion, you know, so that is common, or patients that come and they sign, Marshallese or Chuukese, different areas. So I'm always working with different, interpreters in different languages. So I can, I'm more than happy to provide that information.
This is Darcy. I'm just trying to think of a good, you know, because English isn't the only language, right? So I would like to see how we measure that minimum. How would that translate to a DI doing transliterating, that kind of work. I'm curious to see how those other, less diffused languages are what their minimum, or how are handling that for the transliteration part, especially.
I'm gonna be nice to interpreters and just speak, so they don't have to run around. To piggyback on Natalie's thing, perfect. Maybe we could also, not only with the deaf interpreters, but maybe squeeze it into its own specialty license for foreign language users. Like I brought up in part one of my thing, was like, how do we make exemptions for those? I don't know. It's kind of just starting it out, but like, yeah.
The nods from the crowd.
Go ahead, Sammy.
Do you guys want to move on to the calendar?
Mm-hmm.
So next Wednesday would be the 27th, or you already scheduled the 10th of April. Canceled the 27th. So I don't think there's enough time in between. Yeah. To do it.
This is Christy. I think we have done a head count. We know that at least 3 people can't be here next week. We also have 2 folks not here today. We don't know their availability. So I propose that we cancel next week and we meet again on the 10th. And then we now select the next 1 or 2 meeting dates, get them on the calendar, so the interpreter requests.
Amanda seconds. Third. You guys do your thing, okay.
I'm not available on the 10th. I would like to keep the 27th if possible, but if the majority says no, that's fine. But I won't be able to attend on the 10th, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
So who can come on the 27th? How many do we need?
7.
So just 5, and we need 7. Okay.
And I don't think our homework will be done by next week. And I would like to have a little bit more productive session next time, so I like to feel prepared to contribute.
So we could do like May 2nd. Okay.
Do April 10th.
It's like. April 10th.
You just said May, so.
Right, but on the May.
No.
Carrie.
April 29th, April 22nd through
Yeah, I
May
know.
3rd.
Yeah, I know. Oh, yeah, I have that. So like. Do the 8th of May. The 23rd of May. 9th of May.
I like the 9th.
May 9th.
Didn't say the 9th. I think it's the 8th.
It's the 8th and 97th.
I don't do that. We're not doing the 8th.
Oh,
I could do the 8th. 8th.
I just have a question. So for April, are we not scheduling anything?
April 10th.
We're doing the 10th.
Okay, I didn't realize it was confirmed yet.
Yeah, I think you guys confirmed it last week.
Okay.
Christie, are we? I can do either May 8th or 9th, I think.
All those that can attend May 8th, please raise
I
your
have
hand.
to do some switcheroos, but.
You want to just try for once a month? Or what do you want to do?
You can say that's fine with me. The interpreters are gonna split.
Juneteenth, so you get actual Juneteenth off.
What about Fridays? We have meetings on Fridays? I prefer that. Yeah, what about Friday? I'm fine with that, says Amber.
We have Wednesdays and Thursdays open.
Oh, you said only Wednesdays and Thursdays are open.
That's preferable.
Can I suggest June 12th?
No. Not a board meeting.
No. 19th? No.
This is Christie. Sandy, could you propose 2 additional dates?
6th and 27th
Of June?
of June.
Mm-hmm.
26th is better.
Or the 5th and 6th
Of June?
this June of June, yeah.
June 5th.
This is Nessa, I prefer the six.
Just a
I
second for
prefer
the
the
interpreter,
6th.
please. Please hold for the interpreter. June 5th, 6th, 26th, and 27th are the proposed dates right now for June.
About 6th.
It's Christie, all those in favor of June 6th, raise your hand.
Hold on. Wait a minute, yes, 6, yes, 6.
Yeah. That's been the team. Do you want to go a third one or stop at 2?
I think schedule it out. I'm ready. I want to make sure we have interpreters forever.
Yeah.
The 10th of July.
Hold on, let's get it in our calendar first.
Or perhaps the last week of June? Could we have another meeting?
I could do June 26th.
Yeah, we can do the 26th.
And maybe take July
26, yeah.
Only gives you 2 weeks in between. But guess you don't mess with it. 3 weeks. I think 3 weeks. 15.
Carrie.
Did we confirm on the 26th?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I'm the one that puts it on our calendars, so.
I'll email them to you like last time.
Okay.
We have the 10th of July, the 17th of July. 11th,
So you
18th,
said July 10th?
10, 11, 17, 18, and 24. And 31.
I'll vote 11. Thursday.
Can you say those July dates again?
July 10th, 11th.
10, 11, 17, 18, 24, 31.
There will be a very big interpreter shortage July 10th or 11th, as many of us will be at a festival. And then Oregon Country Fair,
Oh.
and which takes about 7 interpreters or 10 interpreters. Some of us are here. Anyways, so can we do the 17th?
You have to always do Wednesday.
You're right, Thursday, 18th.
18th is good.
18th. I didn't know it was a Wednesday thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Those are my days off.
Oh, hell no then.
Fine with me.
Okay, 18th.
The group is in agreement for the 18th.
You're welcome.
And then we have August 8th, 14, 21, 22. And I'm not gonna go past August.
Thank you.
Thursdays are better.
Nissa here. I'm cool with either the 8th or the 22nd.
I'll second the 8th.
Okay.
Hold on for the interpreters.
I'm thinking.
That's a joke. We again say that options are the 8th or the 20 or the 22nd. 8th is fine. 8th is. All these are-
This is Nissa. So, this breakfast thing that I was gonna miss out on, are we using this for the next one? In May? 'Cause I really want breakfast.
We canceled the 27th, so
Yes.
we'll still use it for the next.
I propose it for the next one.
I just need the one I gave you.
Yeah, of course.
For April 10th.
Yeah, yeah.
So April 10th, it's gonna be here.
So 6 meetings we have set up so far.
We recap them. We need April 10th, May 8th. Uh-oh. Maybe June 6th to 26th. Oh, that's why. That's supposed to be.
May 6th, wait, or the
June
26th.
6th and June 26th. And July 18th. And August 8th.
This is Darcy. Hi, this is Darcy speaking. I would like to propose that we have more than 3 interpreters for this all-day meeting. I think we need at least 4 or 5, because you can see the 3 interpreters we have are exhausted. They didn't have a break. They've been either signing or voicing or teaming, supporting the other person, or even copy signing. So they really haven't gotten a break, and we need a minimum of 4 interpreters. Ideally 5. Just throwing it out there. Nissa?
This is Nissa speaking. I also propose we have at least a DI or 2 to help with mirroring, because, yeah, that.
So Carrie requests that every time, which hasn't been able to get that. If we need to start requesting 4 and 5, we can do that, but again, we know what happened on that first meeting, no one showed up. The last meeting, one person canceled. Luckily, someone able to fill in, so we can only do with the tools that we have. But Carrie has been doing as much as she can to get those people here.
Yay. Yay.
And what I have. So, and what I have noticed is some people in the community don't want to be that person. So I mean, it's totally understandable, but I'm very limited on the companies that I've actually got to respond to me, as well as people that can actually get scheduled or that want to do it. Yeah. You know?
Tina?
What if we had a half hour lunch?
Amanda said that would help. Yeah, see? Oh,
Still a lot of watching on my eyes all day.
You want to schedule a 30-minute lunch?
yes.
This is great. Our official start time is 10. However, it's recommended that we get here at 9:15. I'm wondering, does it make sense to start officially at 9:30 and have that 30-minute lunch, or is that more difficult the community?
It's fine.
I'm fine with that. Yes,
This is Nessa. Are we opening for public comment soon? Because it's 2:35.
yep.
At this time, the Board of Sign Language Interpreters Rural Advisory Committee will now hear the public interest parties feedback. Members of the public, please wait until you've been recognized. Once recognized, please state your name and affiliation to the committee and the board for the record. Anyone email you, Carrie?
No, but, Jack has raised. So let me get him to spot.
Hello. Okay, hi, may I go ahead? Yes, okay, hi. You see? Can you pause? Oh, thank you. Yes, okay, great, I can see the interpreter, perfect. Can everyone see me all right? Wonderful. This is Jack Ludwig. I'm the president of OAD and also the chair of the board of the sign language interpreters. I would like to make a comment. I've really noticed, I see a lot of improvement in the things that you're not interrupting each other. And I'm glad to see less oppressive behavior, but it's also really important for the recording visually. I know that it's a pain in the neck to have to get up from the table and just sit on screen and make your comment on camera, but it's critical. I know it's critical to have the time to discuss, but also equity is also important. There are many. Sorry, I need to ask him to, again, his hearing board. Okay, I guess. it's not-
Hold on, Jack.
Oh, now I know. The last. Okay. So. the board has a variety of. We license variance offices like midwives, and they have their meetings that are recorded, just like ours are as well. And those meetings are accessible to hearing people because you can hear the different tones and voices. You can distinguish from person to person. And as I've reviewed, then later when you go back and you watch those videos, you can remember who said what based on hearing the difference in people's voices. So now if we parallel that to here, for the RAC meeting and the sign language interpreters, it's really important to get in front of the camera for the community members. For the deaf community, it's very, very important. It's crucial to have a visualization of who is speaking. Because then also, sure, we're watching the interpreter, but if we want to remember who said what later in life, when we're going back and watching the recordings, it's real, I believe it's critical to have you on camera so that we have visual access, specifically coming from the perspective of a deaf community member. And I recognize it's a pain in the neck and it takes a lot of time to do and you want to get things done, but it's not equitable. It's not fair access for the deaf community because we. Okay. So, yeah, I just want to really encourage you that you come in front of the camera because we want this to be accessible to the deaf community because this is the intention of the House bill of the law to improve quality services for the deaf community. Thank you. Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
We need an interpreter switch.
Anyone else?
No, that's the other hand raised.
I want to wait a few minutes. Sure, everyone knows the chance.
So I think everybody's scanning this.
Adjourn on time. You guys want to? Good.
We'll go ahead and close the meeting. We adjourn.
Adjourn.
You can.
Yeah. Adjourn.
Everybody turn in your, we're on the
He's
street.
the boss. He's the boss.
Yes, I don't have gavel, so there's nothing official.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Darcy, and thank you so much for your patience with all of us. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Are you talking about the lunch?
And thank you too,
forms?
Carrie.
Oh.
Thank you, Carrie. For everything you do.